All right, Scott, do you want me to count you in?
Sure.
3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 30 of the Friday Nightmares podcast. On this episode, we are going to be covering paranormal investigators who go to a haunted house. It's something we brought up millions of times on this show, so we figured we'd finally do this. I am 1/3 of your hosting team this wonderful day. I am Smokeshow Crawford, coming to you from Swartz Creek. Almost did it again. Swartz Creek,
Ontario, Michigan, Canada. Did you know? Well, we'll introduce our special guest soon, but he can talk about how he just learned that there's a new province and state named Ontario, Michigan, that we've created, which is where Scott lives.
And yes, as always, you can hear my lovely host's voice, Miss
Heather Bell, coming to you from Waterdown, Ontario, Canada, as well on this beautiful sunny day, 1 year into pandemic. But to ease you from that pain, we have brought with us today the king of podcasting. This man has been known all across Horrorphilia, the Legion Podcast Network, and is currently available on Patreon. And I'll have to ask him where his other show is. Maybe he can talk about that because I can't remember which network it's being hosted of or if it's independent. He really doesn't need an introduction, but we're going to give him an introduction anyway. He has been part of 5 stellar shows. He knows his horror. He loves VHS. He is currently running a video store out of his basement. He is Mr. Dave C. Dave C., welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. The pleasure is all mine. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me on. And I mean, it's no BS. I tell these two all the time. I listen to every show, and it's been one of my favorite newer shows the last year or two. And I love the format, and I'm thrilled to be here. So thanks so much.
Well, we've learned so much from you, Dave. I'll be honest. So I got to tell you a little story. I've never told you this story, and I waited specifically till today to do this. So I first started listening to podcasts that kill the cast, and I became friends with Jerry. And I said, I love your show. It's so good. He's like, you would like this other show called Exploding Heads. I'm like, Exploding Heads? Why isn't it called Talking Heads? They should be called Talking Heads because they talk. So the first couple times I listened to your episode, I'm like, Talking Heads? Why this should be called Talking Heads, not Exploding Heads. And then you did your ratings. And you were like, Exploding Heads? I'm like, oh, I like this. I dig Exploding Heads too. And I just totally, from that point in, bought into it. And the first episode I listened to was your slasher episode. Your top 50 slashers. Because I saw slashers and I was like, I like slashers. And I was just blown away about the amount of work and the chemistry between the three of you. If you don't mind just talking about a little bit of history about all the different podcasting shows that you've been part of and where people can find you now.
Whew, boy, history. Well, I'll make it quick. I mean,
Cole's nice, Dave.
Right, I'm trying. Let's see here. Holy cow. Okay, so I got into the whole thing because of Alex Edwards, who was the lead host, producer, editor of the Skeleton Crew. And him and I went way back. We met in 2004-ish, back in the days of the message boards. We met it on the Fangoria message boards when that was a big thing. Yeah, and he started his own thing called Crystal Lake After Dark, which was all about Friday the 13th. And I'm like, big Friday the 13th fanboy, and so is he. So we went there, and it was a whole message board about Friday the 13th. We talked about anything and everything that had to do with Friday the 13th. There was like, 40, 50 regulars, and it was a great time. So anyway, he started doing this podcast called Rabbit in Red, which is still around.
Oh,
and
cool.
He was doing Rabbit in Red with Michael J. and Vince. And then something happened. He started doing not a solo thing, but him and Mike left, and they started doing this thing called the Skeleton Crew. And something happened. I was doing a lot of moving at the time, and I was going from Vegas back to Buffalo, and this and that, and lots of things happening in my life. And then one day he says, hey, because I hadn't been on the message boards in a while. It was kind of like becoming the era of Facebook and social media and stuff. This is like 2012, and he texted me or something. He goes, hey man, did you ever listen to those Friday the 13th shows I did on the Skeleton Crew? I said, no. I said, I'm glad you brought them up now because I'm home from work today. I think I had like an ear infection and I was getting over it. And I was home, but I wasn't like bedridden sick or anything. So I said, you know what? I'm going to pick up around the house a little bit today, and I'm going to listen to this thing, the Skeleton Crew. So I started listening to the Skeleton Crew, and they did all 12 Friday the 13th movies, and I never heard anything like it before. Man, this is the early days. This is 2012, 13, when podcasts weren't what they are now. So I was so blown away by this, being the Friday fanboy that I am and hearing people talk about it. There was two things that was exciting. Number one, listening to it. Number two, when I finished, I marathoned it all one day. I couldn't stop. And I was like, I told my wife, I said, you know what? I think I could do this. I want to get involved in podcasting. So about a year later, myself and Matt started Banana Laser. He was also a listener of the Skeleton Crew. So we started Banana Laser, had a lot of fun with that. Then I started guesting on the Skeleton Crew because, buddies with Alex and everything. Mm-hmm. And then we did our run there. And then Skeleton Crew is over for the most part. Banana Laser had to wrap up after a few years. And then I said, I got to get my own thing going here. So I started Exploding Heads with Brandon and Christian. And
Which
right
is
around
nice
the
that
same
you took
time,
Brandon on as like a pity case. That was really kind of you. But do you get Brandon tax benefits for working with him? I'm just wondering.
I'm like a talent scout.
It's like a foster care for.
It's like a foster care for rescued animals. We're just kidding. We love Brandon so much.
I know you guys. You guys get it. He's the third host of the show who's never been on it.
That never shows up. Him, yes.
Right. He's here in spirit though. He's at all times. In spirit. Absolutely. And he always comes up on the show when you're talking. So I know he's like he's kind of like I don't know if you're a Beatles fan, but they always used to say that the fifth Beatle was their manager. And it's kind of like George Martin. So he's kind of like the George. He doesn't produce it all because I know he can't, but he's like me. But he's kind of like the George Martin. He's kind of like he's there, but he's not really there.
That's the best way to describe him, Dave.
That was perfect. He's the third host. But anyway, I don't even know. So it was so weird. Jamie and Brian wanted to start a new show because Skeleton Crew was wrapping up and Jamie was on Skeleton Crew. So they had the idea for ABC's A Hidden Horror. So they asked me, they said, do you want to do on the show? You're the first person we thought of. And number one, I was flattered. Number two, I can't say no to a podcast. Now I can, but at that time I couldn't. So I was like, okay. So I'm starting the ABCs and I'm starting Exploding Heads. And I started those two and had a lot of fun. And getting towards the end of ABCs, Watson over on Horror Corridor, also on Horrorphilia, which where all these shows were, he was calling it quits. And I said, well, this guy can't just go to waste. Mm-hmm. And I kind of missed the old days of doing a 2-man show because that's what Banana Laser was in the beginning. Yep. And Watson and I were such good buddies. I'm like, you know what? I have an idea for a show. I'll propose it to Watson and see what he says. Sure enough, I talked to him and Wadsy was born. So all Horrorphilia sadly is shut down. So a lot of these shows I talk about, you can't even hear anymore. They have to go on an independent feed, which is where Wadsy is now. Watsy's independent. Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering about that.
I thought so. I just wasn't sure. I remember when you guys announced that you were doing a show together and I was overwhelmed because I just, and honestly, Dave, this just isn't because you're on the show. I put you on a pedestal when it comes to podcasting. I really respect what you have to say. I respect who you are as a person. And whether, when we talked about this earlier, whether I agree with all your points that you bring up about movies or not is irrelevant. I like how you present them. And when I heard that yourself and Watson were going to work together, I thought that's going to be a well-produced quality show. And even from right off the bat, it was. And I think that's what happens when you have someone who can edit as well as Watson can and produce, and two people that are comfortable with podcasting and speaking come together. It's a really, really well done show.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you. I also have to say, I mean, this is kind of like the, let's blow Dave segment here because I gotta.
So get that pan open, Dave. Let's see what we're working with.
I gotta
Where's
say,
Brandon now.
Oh, he's the fluffer.
He's the fluffer. That's true.
But no, I gotta say, when I first started listening to podcasts, there was two shows that I felt that made me fall in love with horror podcasting, and that was The Horror Show and Exploding Heads. You two were the first two shows that I had ever listened to. And don't listen to The Horror Show nearly as much as I used to anymore because their content is just kind of comes and goes now. They don't do it as often. But and obviously I'm a patron with you guys, worked with you guys just last week. So I've been a big fan of yours since, God, I'm trying to think. I think it might have been I think it was the 2013 top 13. So I think
Banana Laser. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started there and then found Exploding Heads and continued from there. And yeah, I've been a fan ever since because I used to work third shift and all I did was listen to podcasts for 10 hours straight. So whenever you guys released a new episode, it was instantly downloaded and listening to it while I was working and just laughing my ass off. Because, you guys know your shit, but you're funny as fuck, too, which is great.
Wow, man. Thank you.
And then, it made my day when, you had, because I remember when I was first starting, I did the Horror Drunks podcast. and you gave us a shout out on the Exploding Heads. I'm going, holy shit, Dave Z just gave us a shout out. I was telling Randall and Ken about it. I'm going, oh my God, guys. And they're going, they really didn't know much about podcasting.
Right.
Like, they probably didn't listen to
deal?
any shows. And there's a reason why they're not doing that anymore because of that.
Right.
Like, unless you learn and get better, right? I'm not trying to say anything nasty, but the reality is like Dave, the reason why Dave's probably so good is because he also listens to a lot of other shows.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of like how we are. We listen and we learn.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that made my day when you gave the Horror Drunks a shout out, because I'm going, holy shit, people actually listen. And people that actually appreciate the stuff. Holy crap.
Right, man. Hey, you got to do that. And you got to give people that are newer, you have to give them a rub. If you have any type of audience at all and you like what they're putting out, if you listen to a podcast and you don't like what they're putting out, then fine, don't give them a rub, don't advertise it. But if you say, hey, these guys deserve a bigger audience, then why not pay it forward? Why not share that? Maybe some of your listeners will go and give them a shot because they know that, if they respect your show, maybe they'll believe in it. So it's like,
right.
I wish more people would do that. And I know you guys do, and it's one of the great things about the show. It's nice to see that somebody else does it, because most shows do not. There's like a competition thing maybe. But here's what I don't get. I'm not going to say that I know I'm not this at all, but I'm not a master at marketing, but I have some type of thing in my mind that I think I can see things from a marketing perspective that a lot of just regular people don't. I've not gone to school for it. I've done nothing, but this is what makes sense to me. And I don't understand why other people don't realize it. If, for example, I shout out a podcast, okay, and my people go and listen to that podcast and like it, and maybe join their group, or maybe follow them on Twitter, maybe they'll have some type of interaction with the host who said, hey, I heard about you through this show. And they'll say, oh, I never heard of that show. What is it? Who are they? Maybe I'll check them out. Or befriend their listeners. And then, hey, you guys start talking about podcasts. Oh, yeah, these guys talk about this. Oh, did you hear that so-and-so just talked about that movie a few episodes ago? They did a pretty good breakdown. Whatever. Conversations just arise naturally. That, in essence, that is a way to help other people discover your material as well. It only seems elementary to me to do that. So especially if your podcasts that are of the same ilk, where it's like I wouldn't go hang out with a podcast that was nothing like mine. But if I thought that they had a sense of humor and they had and I thought they knew their stuff or whatever, I would go over there and I would infiltrate. It's not the best choice of words. It might even be a little intrusive, depending. You can't make it look that way. But you go and you befriend people and everything. You get involved in their conversations. Hey, you know what? You like this show. In a way, it's kind of similar to the way we do things over here. Maybe, just maybe here. We talked about this here. I'll put a link out there every so often. And this is what I used to do. And I think a combination of me doing that and being lucky enough to have the people that I've worked with all been wonderful. That's why I got downloads that I got. It doesn't make sense not to do that, I don't think. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Absolutely.
Doesn't it make sense to me, to you guys, just to share it, and then maybe you'll gain listeners and they'll gain listeners, and the more podcasts that get more listens, the better for all of us.
Right. That's exactly how I look at it. Because I think it was Heather's idea to bring up hey, we should bring up different podcasts that we listen to, and we created that segment. And because I always used to promote the hell out of all these shows I listen to just on Facebook. So being able to do it on the show now just makes it even that much better. And even just have their own segment for it.
And when we came up with this show, and I'm really glad you acknowledged this, Dave, on your last when Scott was on. When I met with Scott and we talked about doing a horror podcast, there was some words that you had said about if you're going to do a podcast, make sure it's done well, try to do something unique, try to do something different. And I 100% believed in that, because I can listen to 18 billion podcasts that can do movie reviews. I can find that right now I could go on my phone and find 18 billion, and that's fine. There's some people that do it extremely well, and that's awesome. But I didn't want to do that. I said to Scott, if we're going to do this, I want to do something slightly different. If we're going to talk about themes with movies, and we have a variety of movies, and we just talk about how certain themes were seen in it, the closest thing we've got to a review is doing the remakes. And that was simply because of remakes and originals and comparing them. But I really appreciated that you acknowledged that, because that was something that I said to Scott, and adding the what are we listening to section, what we've been watching, because it was something different. I hadn't heard personally. I'm sure there's shows out like that to do the same. I know Friday the 13th does. something very similar as well. But it was just something that just wasn't, let's talk about one movie. Because you're right, the personality part of like getting to know the host is sometimes the most fun.
Absolutely. I love that. I wish more shows did, but then again, I also like that only certain amounts do it because it separates them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's great because it's like anybody can do that. And I when I first started out, when we started Banana Laser, we would come out there and we would review 2 movies, and that was it. And there was nothing else, and a lot of it was also sequential. Okay, this happened in this part, and then this happened, and then okay, insert wisecrack here and this and that. Okay, oh yeah, what do you think this meant? And I'm not knocking anybody that does it, but the weird thing is, I remember Alex, he was the one that was telling me this as he was listening to the show, and I would always take any constructive criticism from him because he was the guy that started it all for me, and I respect and I loved his show so much. So he was saying, you know, I much prefer a discussion over a walkthrough review. And I didn't know what he meant at the time. And then as time was going on with me and Banana Laser, with us and Banana Laser, I was like, you know, I go, I think you're right. I go, everybody's doing this, and I'm kind of getting tired of this format. But I've noticed since I switched it up, and since we started Exploding Heads, and even what we did with ABCs and what we do with WotC, we don't do that anymore. And I have so much more fun, you know, just talking about having a little discussion about it. You know, it could be a deep dive, or it could be just, you know,
absolutely
a short thing.
Yeah, because like when I did the Horror Drunks and Podcast by the Cemetery, like I would be obsessed with trying to take notes. And I ended up realizing when I took notes that I was basically writing the entire movie down on paper and then just kind of going scene by scene by scene when I did reviews. And I was like, I do not like doing this. Like, it's literally just talking about what I watched on the screen, and people can just watch that at home. It's like, it's not for me. And then, you know, like, I don't feel like I'm the greatest at like reviewing in general. I feel I'm better just at like just talking about the movie. And I think the way that we ended up going with it with our show, it just kind of worked out a lot better because it just feels like people chatting about the movies they watched and just kind of like having a theme to it.
I love it. I love the format. Now, do you still take notes?
Nope. Now I just don't even bother taking notes. It's just I'll watch the movies, and then to refresh myself, I will read the Wikipedias right before we record just to kind of refresh myself on what happened. And then, because as you've heard, we don't go totally deep dive with our movies, so I don't feel like I really need to take notes on it. Like maybe once in a great while, I'll write something like, oh, I want to bring this up on the show, so I'll write a little note in my notepad on my phone. But it's like 1 or 2 little things, and like 90% of the time, I don't even do that.
Wow, I envy you, my friend. I don't have the mental capacity to retain unless I watched it like within 12 hours. I have got to take notes. Otherwise, I mean, sometimes it's if you're doing like a big, like when I go on Exploding Heads, for example, the best shows to me are, because at least there's 3 of us I know, and we're all talking about the same movie. Sometimes we'll start talking and we'll talk for 10 minutes or plus, whatever, and I haven't even looked at my phone yet. I haven't even looked at my notes. That's when I know things are going good. But then sometimes I get towards the end and I'm like, let me look at my notes, because maybe there's a couple of things I wanted to point out and they just left my brain. And then I have to get my shit in, as they like to say. I'm like, okay, wait. Oh, did you guys see when this thing happened? This was funny. And what did you guys think about this? I always do that towards the end, because if I don't, I'll listen back to the show and I'll like, oh my God, I forgot to bring up this. That would have been so, and I kick myself. I'm like, man, it would have been a better talking point. So I have to do it. And I know again that my mind is mush when it comes to having a short-term memory. Always has been.
I'm right there with you. Like, that's why I rely on this beautiful person here, because she's got a memory like a steel freaking trap.
Like an elephant.
Nice.
Elephants don't forget.
Like, she can watch a movie like 3 weeks ago and still be able to talk about every scene in that movie without.
This is how it is. Scott is the looks
of
the show.
No. Yeah.
Wow.
The only time I ever took notes was the first time I went on Exploding Heads, because I was really scared.
Of us?
And I didn't want to look bad. And then I met Christian in person, and I'm like, oh, fuck this dude. He's just a stud.
Guy. Right.
He's just a hottie. He's the hottie of Canada. I don't need to worry. But yeah, so once I got more comfortable, I hope Christian listens to this episode. I really do.
Better.
He listens to like 5 podcasts, and apparently one of them is this. So hopefully he'll listen to this one. But yeah, like I wanted to impress you guys because I had so much admiration for you. But yeah, I don't need to usually, unless we're watching. The remake one was hard because we did 12.
Yeah, that was
fuck, we thought that was a good idea. But anyway, you live and learn.
I love that show, though. I think it's a great idea. It might have been one of my favorite shows that you guys did, to be honest.
Oh, thank
Oh,
you.
well, thank you.
I'm glad you liked it, Dave. That means
Absolutely.
a lot.
Oh, listen, I mean, nobody's done that, first and foremost. Nobody sat down and said, okay, I mean, they've done it. Okay, we're going to talk about the original of this versus the remake of this, and they made like one episode of it. Fine, that's been done to death almost. But to do that many, you know what I mean? And I don't know, it was really cool. I mean, I wish I could have been even taken part in that, because that is a topic I'm really passionate about.
Well, we messaged you quite a bit.
I know. Thank you.
The past a lot, because I think that you guys give very fair reviews over some very unpopular remakes from a very objective standpoint. And I think that's a talent that both you and Brandon and Christian have. And I think it's important. Like, I think it's better than be like, it sucked because I didn't have Robert Englund, so I didn't like the remake. Like, that's a valid reason as why you didn't like a movie, right? Like think beyond that. Present, relevant arguments. So thank you so much for being here, Dave, again. We really look forward to going through this journey with you, and definitely promoting all your stuff. Especially the new place where people can find WotC in case for some reason they don't know where to find it. We'll include that in our show notes as well to make sure that they have a direct link.
Right on, thanks.
So they can listen to both of you gentlemen rock it out. So we'll share our 2020s, and how we do this, Dave. I know you listen to the show, so we
2021s.
2021s. Yeah, I still say 2020s because, well,
takes time.
Every year's the fucking same at this point. But we just go through them. If there's anything you want to add, if you've seen it, great. I've told Scott to not give too many spoilers, Scotty, because Dave doesn't watch trailers.
Yep, I'm well aware, Heather.
We're giving very little information about these movies.
Yeah, but I listen to every show anyway, so just because I'm in the room with you this time, so to speak, don't make any. I listen to every show, and honestly, when I do listen to shows, if I start hearing anything that might be mildly something, I just hit that fast forward button and the thing, and then
we can't fast forward Scott in person, unfortunately. So,
but don't worry about it.
So sometimes Scott gets really excited and reads the entire synopsis of the movie, and it gives it away.
Yeah, I can't help it sometimes.
He gets really excited about some films, but
you got to do it. I'm the asshole. I'm the guy that's uptight about freaking about being spoiled any little thing. I'm in the vast minority here, so don't cater anything for myself.
Well, you're our guest, and we were raised with proper manners, Dave. You cater to your guests, okay? That's how we fucking roll on this.
We just don't cater. We just don't cater to each other.
Yeah, just not each other's needs. We don't give a fuck about that. So, do you want to start off, Scotty, or do you want me to start off?
I can start off.
All right.
So
I forgot to send you my notes. I'm sorry, I interrupted. I was supposed to tell you my notes.
All you need to do is talk about the podcast you've been listening to. We'll just get to that.
Oh, and then the 2021.
And my movies.
Oh yeah, just tell us.
Sorry.
If they're not listed on here, just tell us what they are.
Yeah, so what we'll do...
Yeah, we'll get
to
that
at the end. 3 others. Yeah, okay, cool.
So what we can do, if you want, is we can do me, then Heather, and then have you say one, and then go me, Heather, then you say one if you want. If that works
well,
for you.
I see that one of mine is on your list, so I can just let that go and just do my 3.
Okay.
And the one that's on the list, it was my least favorite. I was going to go in order of least favorite to favorite. It was my least favorite. So let it go. I'm chill. And then I'll just do the other 3.
All right. Yep. And then we'll do the older ones right after our 2021s.
Awesome.
But yeah, we'll just jump right into that. The first one, which this one I had to watch right away, and that is The Stylist from 2021. And this is a feature film that was made out of a short film that I had watched when Shudder had all these short films like up on their service. I'd say probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And I watched the short film for The Stylist, and I'm going, oh, this would make an amazing feature-length horror film. And then sure as shit, a couple of years later, I started hearing news about how it's actually becoming a movie. And it finally got released. This is going to be on the Arrow streaming service, I believe. And man, this movie is incredible. Like, it's well shot, very well acted, and just
good script too.
Yeah, great script. Like
good
everything
writing
about this was just phenomenal. Like, I will just kind of spoil it right now. This is my number 2 of the year right now. I just love this movie.
But it is only March.
It is only March, but I have watched 60. but I've watched 63 2021, so that's saying something if it's
We
number
still
2.
have another 500 to watch.
I'll get there. I'm on pace to beat Mark Nato. We'll get there.
Oh yeah, good luck with that. Good luck.
But have either of you seen this?
Oh, I've seen it, and it's a 105-minute runtime. It doesn't overstay its welcome. I always enjoy when it's a female-centric horror movie that's done well. This is. I think it took something that we, a lot of people have used at some point and really expanded on it. It talked about life events really well. And yeah, some some really interesting kills as well in this film. Good movie. I believe it's available to only rent right now, but I'm assuming this is something Shudder's going to pick up by the end of the year.
Well, no, this will be like I said, this is streaming on Arrow Video.
Is it on Arrow Video? Because we don't have Arrow in Canada, so
probably maybe for Canada it'll be somewhere else for you.
Yeah, it'll probably be a rental on Cineplex or YouTube or Prime eventually. Dave, have you seen this one?
No, I'm aware of it. I was actually sent I want to say I was either sent a screener of it from Arrow, or I was sent, sometimes Arrow will send me these promotional emails that'll just be promotional stuff for it's weird. It's not weird, but it seems like they're promoting their streaming service a little more than their physical releases now. So it's like, I'll get like 3 emails from Arrow in like a week or 2 period. And 2 of the 3 will be about the streaming service and what's going to be on it. So they're really making an attempt to have exclusives there, which of course is smart. They're trying to do the Shudder thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I've known about it. And when I was going to watch it, but I only had so much time, and everything I've watched so far has been for podcasts only, including this one now. So when I knew I was doing this podcast, that's why I asked you guys what you've watched there, because I wanted to try to watch 3 or 4 movies that you guys hadn't seen yet that actually interested me. So I was able to pull that off, but I was planning on watching The Stylist, so I still will.
Certainly. Yeah, I think you'll like it, Dave. I think this will be up your alley.
Yeah,
we'll enjoy this one.
Yeah, this was like I was very pleasantly surprised. Did you ever see the short film?
No.
Okay, yeah, the short film is like very, very similar, like obviously, but like man, like, and it's got the same actress in it and everything that plays the main in this film. So they brought everybody back for it, and it was just really just such a good movie. And yeah, I gotta say, with Arrow Video so far, they are 2 for 2 with me with the 2021 exclusives, because they seem to be picking up these indie gems. Because a movie I brought up a couple episodes, A Ghost Waits, is also an Arrow Video release, and that was for just such a low budget, micro budget film, so well done. And so yeah, I'm happy to see Arrow Video doing this and bringing some of these like lesser known titles to the forefront.
Nice. Awesome. So the next one we'll talk about is a Canadian film. It was actually released in Canadian theaters last year. Fortunately, I didn't get a chance to go see it because it was released in a theater that wasn't near me and the whole COVID thing, and theaters are open at different points. But anyway, it's called Slaxx. It's a 77-minute runtime, and it basically makes fun of the consumerism culture. It makes fun of the fair trade culture, and it makes fun of millennials. And I find it hilarious. But you have to walk into this knowing that it's very much a sarcastic comedy with a social commentary about those 3 things. If not, it may annoy you, but the characters are meant to be over the top because of what they're making fun of.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, just the idea of killer genes. I mean, it's ridiculous. So you got to go in going, okay, this is gonna be a silly topic, kind of like a Rubber, the one about the killer tire. So like, you go in just going, okay, I'm gonna expect something very silly. Thankfully, it's not as silly as Rubber is, because that movie hurt my head. But that's a movie for a different day. But yeah, I agree. Slaxx was really well done and like hilarious, and was great at making fun of like the culture of these high-end retail stores and stuff like that. And yeah,
and millennials and consumerism.
Yeah,
and it was definitely a hit at a popular Canadian retail store called Roots. This was definitely a jab at them. Which is funny if you know the Root store and you know what they represent. Have you seen this at all, Dave? It's on Shudder now.
No, I've been holding off again. The thing with this one is, you guys know that I don't like goofy comedy type stuff.
Yeah, you may not dig this one.
However, I still am intrigued. Like Rubber, I was never going to watch. I knew that.
Yeah. And
just based on everything I've heard. So I have not watched it, but I'm intrigued anyway, because if it's tongue-in-cheek comedy, and it's something that's taking a jab at consumerism, which is something that I have a strong opinion about. See, that's what's intriguing to me. Anytime it's a social commentary, and you don't see a lot of social commentary on consumerism. I don't think you see it.
I agree.
You don't. It's most of the commentary you see now is the same tired thing we've been seeing for 3 years, in my opinion. But the consumerism thing, this goes back to 70s and stuff like that, when they were doing things here and there, and Romero and others. So I probably am going to watch it just because it's on Shudder and it's something that people are watching. Brandon didn't like it, I don't think, but
no, he didn't dig it.
Well, yeah, I'll say, he turned around by the second half.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I do remember he disliked the first half, but then by the second half, he was enjoying it more, from what I remember him saying.
Which is why I've kind of added my disclaimer that there is some very much over-exaggeration of millennials and their dialogue in this film.
It's okay.
Right. So you have to be able to handle that or find that funny. But at a 77-minute runtime, you're not spending a lot of time. You know what I mean? Like it keeps it short and it's smart. It doesn't drag it out longer than essential, which I think is really important for a film. Know what you are and make your time matter. Don't drag it out for additional time that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
I think this film is smart that way. So yeah, if you get a chance to watch it, probably by the end of the year, Dave, I would say give it a watch for sure.
I might watch it with Frankie, actually, because
she would probably dig it.
Fun.
Yeah, I think she would have fun with it.
Yeah.
Although she's Generation Z, so it's hard to say. But she pokes a lot of fun at the trends of the people her age, because she watches YouTube. So she sees a lot of stuff on YouTube, and she always makes cracks. Granted, she still talks like they do to a degree, but she's so much like me that she just was born rebellious, and she just can't help but rebel against trends. And I don't tell her it has anything to do with me, but I know this is how I was and am, and she's the same way. So I'm like, maybe she's going to be interested in it. If it's making fun of modern things, she may not understand the commentary on the other stuff.
I think she will. I think your daughter's pretty bright. Yeah. From what I've heard her talk, I think she'll get it. I don't think she'll get the added piece. I think unless you're Canadian and you put together which clothing retailer they're making fun of, that's a little bit of a thing. I don't think Christian would get that though. He'd be like, "What the fuck are you talking about, Heather?" But they were definitely digging at this.
Yeah. That's why I'm glad that I have Heather as someone that I go to when I talk about movies, because she'll bring up these points and I'm going, "Oh, so I'm going to look into this Roots store real quick," and I'm going, I get it. Okay.
Yeah, very much so. But yeah, I get her to watch it, and then maybe on Exploding Heads, see what she thought of it.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
I can do that.
I want to know for sure.
Yeah,
she really wants to watch that movie that you guys talked about a couple episodes ago. The one with Nicolas Cage, the
Willy's Wonderland.
Yeah, that's fun. That's a fun film.
Yeah, so I'll probably check that with her first, and then maybe next week get onto the Slaxx.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll say, and then Slaxx just got released on Shudder, so it'll be available. It should be available to everybody. Did you check to see if it's available in Canada on Shudder?
Oh yeah, it's on Canadian Shudder and it's on DirecTV. Yeah.
Perfect. Let's go to Dave Z. What was one of the ones you brought?
Okay. Let's see. I have 3. Here's one. Oh, wow. Oh, boy. See, I would not have watched this if I would have waited, because it's currently at a 3.8 out of 10 on the B. And when that happens, I don't watch things below 4. So, but because of, like I said, I was trying to keep up with the big dogs here. I was like, I was like, I'm going to watch these movies. Scott keeps his letterboxd on point, so I know what he's watched. I don't know what Heather's watched, but I noticed that she is a little bit vocal about it on social media or in chats or else. So I'm like, okay, these are some movies I haven't heard anything about. So I actually paid to rent this one. I paid like $4 or $5 to rent it, and it's called The Heiress. Now,
I haven't heard of this one.
I don't think it's so bad as a 3.8. Matter of fact, I don't think it's bad at all, but I'll read the synopsis because, like I said, my mind is mush. But this is what it says. Claire and Anna, are devoted sisters who live together. Claire suffers from fits, and Anna cares for Claire between time at work and seeing her boyfriend. However, when Claire begins to see ghostly visions within the house, Anna has difficulty believing her. As the visions worsen, they test Claire's sanity, until one night she mistakenly attacks Anna, believing her to be one of the ghosts. Claire is hospitalized, but the visions continue to haunt her. But Claire was never okay, that's spoiler. Okay, so what carries this movie is the struggle on the lead. Like I said, her name is Claire, and she has a struggle going on between her parents see things a certain way. This is a movie from the UK.
Okay.
And her father is concerned about mental health of hers, taking the scientific approach, and her mother thinks that she needs to get right with God, that some faith will help her. So the age old, science versus spirituality, it comes in there. And then she has to worry about her sister, who is also there. And this woman is kind of at home. She's had work is making her stay at home. Her grandmother just passed away, and she was really close with her grandmother. And the result of that, they and I know it's kind of, at least I can't keep up with all of it, but I don't know if it's politically correct to use the word fits. I don't know, but that is what that's what they say time and time again throughout this movie. That's the only word they use. It seems to me that it's more like a epileptic thing,
gotcha.
but combined with stress, like a seizure thing brought on by a panic attack. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't get on the floor and start shaking around. It's hard to explain exactly what happened, but it's a lot of mental stuff going on with her. And the events of her grandmother passing, I guess she's had a couple of these fits, and her work has told her to stay home for a short time. So now we have her sister, who's closest to her, and she has this boyfriend. And the boyfriend is kind of, in my opinion, I know where he's coming from, but he does come off insensitive. It's almost like, in Midsommar, when his friends are telling him, hey, listen, it's not your fault. She's going through her issues. That's what her shrink is for. You don't have to be there at her every beck and call. You're enabling her. It's kind of like the thing that's going on there. Her boyfriend is trying to get her to pull away from her sister, who's having these issues more and more, and saying, she's running your life. I love you. I want to spend my time with you. I don't want to share everything about your sister. Every time she calls, you come running. So this girl, Claire, has all this stuff pulling at her at once, and she's seen these visions since her grandmother died. And as it goes on, we learn more about some things with her grandmother. And of course, it's a horror movie, so it goes down a certain path, and you can probably, in a way, guess what's going to happen. But I'll tell you what, the more I talk about it, I actually like it. It's definitely, I would still recommend it. I think it's worth checking out. I think one, maybe both of you will like it. It's hard to say, like the other movie I'm going to talk about, I have a complete, I don't think you guys will like it, even though I did. But this one here, I think you can go either way, because it's more of a character piece about this girl. And I think it's kind of an interesting story.
That's
awesome. It's
awesome.
called The Heiress, and you can rent it on basically anywhere. I think I rented it on Prime.
Yeah, I looked it up while you were chatting, because it's available on Amazon, Google, Vudu, YouTube, and Microsoft Store. So it's available everywhere to rent. So if anyone's interested, you should be able to choose one of those avenues to rent it. So thanks for bringing that, Dave.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it.
That was my goal. You're welcome.
I am definitely going to be checking this out, because that sounds very interesting and up my alley.
Cool. It's very British. I'll tell you that. It's very British, and it's it's cool. I think you guys will dig it, but it's hard to say. We'll see.
Right, but you know me, I pretty much will give most things a shot as long as they're not awful.
Scott will try anything once.
That's true.
Everybody. Just so we're clear.
I mean, I am
anything
the Smoke
once.
Show.
Once.
Smoke Show lives his life by trying anything once.
Right.
Right on, brother.
All right, so Heather, I'll let you bring in this next movie, since it's very fresh in your head, where I watched it last year because of the Shudder sneak peek thing.
Yeah, because you're a balla, that's why.
Yeah.
So Lucky is it was recently dropped on Shudder about, I guess it would be a week and a half ago now. It's an 83-minute runtime, and it's a very interesting film. It's very much a social commentary on issues that tend to face women. Personally, it was a difficult watch for me because some of the things I haven't personally experienced. So I was able to kind of engage in it in probably a very different level. I think this movie was written by a woman, directed by a woman, and made for women. And that's fine. I felt the same way about Homewrecker last year when it came out, that it was very much a female-centric film that was geared towards heterosexual females. And I think there's some really good messages in this. Do I think everyone's going to walk into this film and like it? Absolutely not. I think some people may find it very confusing. Some people may find it triggering. Some people may find the message too strong. Whatever the case may be, I do think the acting in it is good. I do think the writing is fairly decent. But I do think this is definitely geared towards females, and it's available on Shudder, both regular Shudder and Shudder Prime, for a watch. What did you gentlemen want to chime in? Any thoughts on it, generally speaking?
For me, I remember when I watched it last year. So like I say, it's very foggy in my head, but I found it just very confusing. When you explained like what it was and like just going through the step by
what
step.
It was that I was reflecting that they were talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, when you explained it that way, I was going, okay, from what I remember, this makes so much more sense. I want to go back and give it a rewatch now that it's considered a 2021 watch. I can kind of watch it and see if I get a different perspective on it now. Because when I watched it, that went right over my head.
Yeah, fair enough, right? And I think depending what your experiences are, or you may feel this message is too much. It really is going to depend, but I do think it's a well-acted film, and the main actress in it, Brie Grant, I think she does a great job. Dave, did you want to throw in any thoughts?
Well, I watched this movie for one reason and one reason only, and it's the title.
Kitty cat.
Yeah, I had to watch a movie called Lucky for my little boy. So I did watch that. Did you happen to hear when we discussed it when I guessed it on the Rotten Roundtable?
No, not yet. No.
Nope. I'm actually halfway through that episode. I have not got to your pick on that one yet.
Okay. I wish you did. Someone else picked it and we all talked about it and we all felt the same way. So I was relieved, especially since one of them is Tammy, a female.
Yeah.
So at first I kind of held back a little bit. And then when she opened up, I said, okay, now I feel a little more comfortable saying this. The first half of it, I really enjoyed. It was almost like a Twilight Zone-y type thing. And I was on board with the narrative. And then I think the message, I remember when What Do You Call It came out and everybody said that the message was like extremely strong. And I didn't. It was that.
Black Christmas 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's what everybody said about Black Christmas. I didn't watch it until I had to for a guest on Uncut to the Chase. And when I saw it, I'm like, that really wasn't nearly as overpowering as I thought the way people are talking. I said one character was, but as a whole, I don't see it that strong. I thought what happened in the second half of this one, that's what that was. It was
a very strong message.
Right. It was very strong.
Yeah. And I agree with that message, but at the same time, I wouldn't fault someone if they didn't like the movie. Like, I feel like this movie was definitely made for a specific audience. And even the writing at times, like there was some lines, and because I'm trying so hard to stay away from spoilers,
right,
that I got what they were saying. I did get it. I think most people got it, and I did agree with it, but I could understand where someone would be like, this is too much. So this is really going to come down to personal preference. How you feel about this film, right? Like,
you know what scene I liked, Heather? Really liked was when her agent or whatever his name is came to the door and he said something to her. He said something to her and she corrected him saying, "What do you mean lucky?" And then she said this and that. I did this and I did that. I believe that does happen. I believe it has happened and it will continue. And it's a shame. That is something that to me, I'm on board with. What I wasn't on board with was again, without spoiling, basically saying how every one of these people has to deal with one of them who's like this in their life. Yeah. It's almost like it
was very much a blanket statement.
Yeah, it's negative vibes, man. That's the way I took it. It was like, and if I was to make a movie and switch it and say, okay, let's put a bunch of these people in this situation and every one of them have one of these to deal with of their very own that's doing this and this, people would hate me. They would say, oh my God, this guy is a misogynist, this and that. So anything to me that's sending negative vibes out that way, that can be, I'm going to have a little issue. You know who explained it best? Duncan McLeish said this when he did a little brief review on it. And he says, well, there's this going on and this going on. He says something about mansplaining taking place. And he goes, by the end of this movie, I felt like the movie was mansplaining to me. That's what he said. And I'll leave it at that, as to not be controversial. I just thought it was a little heavy-handed, but not it's
100% heavy-handed.
I'm trying to walk lightly because I know you enjoyed it and you agreed with parts of the message.
Yeah, I get the message, and it's because of my experience, right? So I think I'm reflecting on personal experience, which is why, but I can appreciate on how that message can be heavy-handed for people and turn them off, right? I think you have to, that's why I feel like this movie is either you're going to dig it or you're going to not. And I think that's fine either way. Either you're going to find it too much or you're going to find it just right. And that's fine either way. I really don't think there's unless people walked out of this movie and was like, what's the problem? You can, smack a bitch if you want to. That might be, a reaction that I would be like, no, I don't think that's a good way to walk out of Lucky. But I think that
or anything,
right? But like, I think that it was, and I will always, when I saw at the end that it was written and directed by women, I'm like, this was done from somebody that's experienced some kind of trauma. This was written, I 100% believe, from a trauma perspective, and was a way of them dealing with it. And that's fine. But that's why I think it was so heavy-handed. And yeah, it's interesting. People have to watch it and check it out themselves. I don't think there's anything anyone could say to me. I would never be offended if someone didn't like it and found it too much. I think that's absolutely fine.
But that's something I'm gonna have to rewatch because it's very foggy in my memory when I watched it. Which, though, just looking back, this was a very weird, strange film to release on Halloween night as their sneak preview from Shudder.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't quite get that. I don't get how that was a Halloween themed film. I think this could have been released during other maybe acknowledgements.
Yes.
Not necessarily happy holidays, but something like that would have made a lot more sense than
I thought it was I thought it was a very odd choice for them to. I think that's kind of why I was like not feeling the movie, because I was on Halloween night and I'm going, this is not what I was expecting.
Well, and it could also just not be your jam, right? Like you could have found the message too much, and that's okay. That was their purpose, though. Their purpose was to make the message heavy-handed. So people are either going to be, into that or not, and that's completely fine. So it's on Shudder, though. It will be interesting to see how it goes this year. And I think, yet again, the main actress in it's getting around a lot. She wrote the film as well. Yep, definitely got some talent.
Yeah, I was saying she's one of my favorites from my number one film from last year, After Midnight.
Yep. She's a very
she was in
woman.
that? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, she's in a lot of stuff now. I was shocked to find out how much she's in, because she was also in The Stylist.
Yeah, she was. She's in The Stylist as well. Yeah, she's really adding to her resume. So who knows what else we'll see from her. Now, this one you watched, Scott, right?
Yeah, I think you watched it as well from what I've seen on your letterbox.
Unfortunately, yes.
Oh, okay. This should be interesting then.
This is where Dave talks about us being more selective. He's right.
All right. So this one is not heavy-handed. So this is just this movie is called The Devil Below. A group of 4 amateur adventurers who specialize in exploring remote and forsaken places pay a visit to Shookham Hills, a town in the remote Appalachian Mountains, which was abandoned decades ago due to a mysterious coal mine fire. This basically, I went into this going, all right, this seems like your basic creature features type monster movie. And that's pretty much what this is. There's nothing really special about this film, but it was just an easy watch. The acting was fine. The setting, I like the whole mine shaft, like something happening in a mine type setting, because it's very claustrophobic. And I thought the creature design for this monster was pretty interesting as well, and kind of had some grossness to it. But it's just low budget fare. They did what we talked about before on low budget, where they don't show the creature much, and when they do show it, it's hidden in shadows a lot, or hidden with dark light, or like a reddish light, to kind of mask like the low budgetness. Like they use their budget wisely, I feel. But this isn't going to be, oh my god, everybody needs to see this. This was just kind of like I watched it and it was fine. I had fun with it. I didn't regret my time with it at all. But it definitely sounds like Heather, on the other hand.
I don't remember anything about this movie. It's an 89-minute runtime. Listen to Scott. I remember nothing. It didn't matter. Yep. So
and that's saying something if the brains here cannot remember it.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Right.
I don't remember. Again, basically you summed it up. It was okay. It wasn't anything horrible. It just wasn't my jam. You can find it though on Google, Vudu, Microsoft Store, and YouTube. Scott, what would you say a rental price?
I would say $1.99, $2.99 maybe. Like,
so the amount that someone would pay for a night with you.
Oh, I hope they'd pay a little more, even though I'd be willing to give it away for free.
That's true, right?
True.
That's true. Who are we kidding? And Dave, did you want to throw one out there?
Well, I'll say this first of all about that last movie. I'm going to be a total Dave Z here and say I took one look at the cover and said I'm sticking. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but it's
I,
just,
I don't do the Dave Z test. Like
I know.
The cover reminds me of Tremors, doesn't it? Like, doesn't it
does.
kind of look like Tremors? Only
In a way,
not as
yeah.
good?
Right.
It reminds me of Tremors with Feast.
Yes,
Right.
the thing is a little feisty. Yeah, you're right. But something about the artwork, the way it looks, and just I can't get into it. You got to listen to Watsy to get into the details of that game. But that was enough for me.
Yeah, because
okay.
I look at it because like I do love that whole cover test with you, like because it seems to steer you in the correct direction a lot of the time.
It is tried and true. I wouldn't pimp it so much if that wasn't the case. But and now Watson's figured it out, and I know there's some other believers out there now. So slowly, this is gaining a little.
The Cult
bit
of
traction.
C. Now we're gonna make a new horror movie, The Cult of C. Cover test. He judged your cover. He didn't watch your movie, and that was the end. Coming soon to theaters, 2020. Sorry, Dave. What's your movie?
Awesome. No, that's great. Okay, my movie is called Come True. Have you guys seen this? Hopefully,
no.
Nope.
Okay.
I just heard about it yesterday though, so I haven't. But I haven't heard anything about it yet though. I just heard the title.
Mission accomplished. All right, Come True. Okay. A teenage runaway takes part in a sleep study that becomes a nightmarish descent into the depths of her mind and a frightening examination of the power of dreams. Okay, I will say this. Technically, it's done really well. It's dark. It has some haunting imagery, some trippy stuff. Definitely not going to be for everyone because everything that's going on in the narrative and the way it's explained at the end, a lot of people are going to have a lot of problems with. But I enjoyed it. The lead, her name, the character is called Sarah. I had to look her up because I was so impressed with her performance. Her name is Julia Sarah Stone. She's actually from Vancouver, BC.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I think this actress has a bright future here. I think her performance was top notch. It's she's the central character. She volunteers for this thing where they pay you $12 an hour to sleep, and she's a runaway. You see her. She goes into her parents' house when they're not there. We don't know why. That might be a complaint that we don't get enough information on why she ran away from her house and why she is the way she is. I don't always need that in a movie. Sometimes I just like a movie. Okay, it's going to be placed on this date of time. Boom, here we are. And that's all I need to know. She's a runaway. That's fine. To me, that explains that she's yearning for something. And it's one more reason for her to need a place to sleep. So that's enough for me. I don't need all that stuff. Some people are going to watch this movie and say, I wish they would have spent less time on some of the dream stuff and more time on the character and why she ran away. And I understand that. But for me, it didn't matter. Ultimately, what happens here is, she's getting paid to sleep in these things overnight. And they're hooking up monitors to her, and other people take part in the study. And it's been going on for years. They don't tell you why. And you start seeing things that apparently appear worldwide in everybody's dreams. A same creature looking thing. And it's happened since the beginning of time. And they had this new technology where you can put something on somebody's brain and you can basically see what their brain is seeing by way of just what's in their head or by way of their vision itself. So it's really interesting. But again, it's not going to be for everybody. And the thing is, when the movie ends and the way it ends and the explanation for some of the things that have happened here, too many people are going to see that, and they're going to see that as a cop-out ending. And they're going to say, oh, that's it. That's what they're doing here. Oh, that sucks. Like Heather, I don't think you'll like it at all. I think the ending will completely turn you off. Scott's more of a wild card with things like this, and I think he may like it. But the thing about this movie is that this is the movie I thought about the most. When the movie ended, I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. I'd like to go back and see how this led to this. And the more I thought about what they said at the end, what the reason was, it kind of got me empathetically thinking about people that have to go through this. And I'm like, man, I wonder if it is like that. I wonder if this. So for the next day, I'm at work, and it kept popping into my head. I don't think it's anything to write home about. It's not going to make my top 10, but it's different and it's interesting. I just think that the cop-out ending to a lot of people is what's going to bother them. But to me, initially, like I said, it didn't bother me, but I was like, I wish they wouldn't have done that. But then I started thinking about it the next day. I'm like, you know what? That was kind of cool. So I'll leave it at that. It's called Come True, and I think you could rent it basically anywhere. Wow,
yeah,
$7.
Google Play, Vudu, Microsoft Store, YouTube, and Amazon. So
horror sci-fi.
That's cool. Yeah, thanks for bringing that, Dave.
Yeah, I will definitely check it out just because, like you said, I am the wild card. So I do tend to like a lot more movies than most people do. Like I am a little more lenient, though. We'll be getting probably into a couple more where Heather and I will be bumping heads a little bit, I'm sure.
Bumping heads, bumping
uglies.
Yeah, it's that kind of podcast.
Always is.
Always is. That's how we roll. All right, I guess it's your turn, Scotty.
All right, so the next one, I just love the title. It is a Shudder exclusive called "Stay Out of the Fucking Attic."
Yeah.
Or also "Stay Out of the Attic," as it is on Letterboxd, I believe.
Yeah, they didn't have fucking on Letterboxd. Well, I didn't have it in the Google Notes either, because I like to keep things J friendly, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
Now this one is basically about a team of like 3 ex-cons who have served their time and are now just kind of have started a business where they are just kind of doing their movers and they're helping people move stuff like that. And the main guy kind of like hires on these ex-cons because he was one as well, but he's trying to give them a job after they get out and have done their time. And they go to this like very big mansions like style house, and this creepy old dude's there talking about, I need you to get everything out of this house by tomorrow morning. So they're having to stay overnight to box everything up and move it out. And while they're there, he's like, stay out of the basement and stay out of the attic. Don't worry about that stuff. That's me. Just get the first and second floors done and, get out of here. I'll pay you extra. And of course, while they're there, they start hearing weird noises and like seeing things out of their corner of their eyes, and just like things just start getting strange. And of course, like typical horror movie fashion, no one listens to the whole stay out of the basement, stay out of the attic scenario, and bad shit starts happening. I have to say, this was a lot of fun. I went in not really knowing what type of movie this was going to be. And holy shit, I was really surprised. Like, this was just a blast from beginning to end. The acting was all really well. And it's pretty horrific in some scenes with some of the things they show. They got some nightmarish visuals going on. And like it's just got this very creepy atmosphere throughout, and the house itself is just very creepy and unsettling because some places look really nice and fancy, and then some places look all dingy and dirty and just like very disturbing looking, like creepy, like just gross bathrooms you'd find in like an abandoned house or something like that.
Or a restaurant in Flint.
Yeah, or a restaurant in Flint. I mean, you're not wrong. I've been to places like that. You're not wrong. They make the best food, but
you don't want to do anything else there. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I highly recommend this film. I don't want to give too much away, but there is a film that I want to compare this to, but even comparing it would spoil it. So but I would say like, give this movie a watch. It is really, really well done. And you, Heather, you've seen it too, right?
Yeah, I have. I first, when I started watching, I'm like, oh, what is this piece of shit? And then it got better. It got real good. It's an 80-minute runtime. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's fun. It's quick moving. If you want to watch something that's going to move quickly and doesn't require a lot of brain power, I would definitely recommend this. The visuals are great. The acting is decent for what it is. And it's available on Shudder, both Canada and the United States, AMC Plus in the United States, Shudder, Amazon in the United States, and DirecTV. Have you seen it, Dave?
Oh, I plan to.
I think you'll like it. It's fun.
I think this will be a good one for you to check out.
Yeah.
All right, I can dig it.
And
all right,
the
Heather.
Next one. We're not going to talk about this one for long.
No, we're not.
I knew it.
Because Dave's like, the fucking cover, Heather, if you just listen and join my cult and drank the Kool-Aid and stop watching shitty covers. And you know what, Dave? You may be right. DreamCatcher, it stole my dreams of everything. Will to Live. I'm just kidding. It's not that bad. See worse. It's a 90-minute runtime. It's a slasher. It's okay. I think if you really dig slashers and maybe you watch all of them, this might be something that you want to watch. It's a very basic plot. A little bit of a revenge stuff kind of tied into it. Sprinkle a little bit of drugs, sprinkle a little bit of tank tops on people, sprinkle some good looking people. It's good enough if you like to watch some hotties run around and get stabbed. So you can find it on Google, Vudu, Cineplex, or YouTube. And as I said, if you're a big slasher fan, I would recommend it. If not, then I would really stay away. And when I say big slasher fan, I mean like you like all slashers from like the 2000s and the 2010s and onwards, and you want to be a completist. I would rent it. If not, I wouldn't even bother.
I'm not. I wouldn't even bother even then. Like,
yeah, you would, Scott. Shut the fuck up. You would totally rent this. Stop lying because Dave's here and you're trying to impress him.
No, I was gonna say. I was gonna say, when I watched this, for one, you didn't bring up this, and I have to bring it up. The main girl, I hate her. You fucking hate her.
And you don't even, like, you're not supposed to hate her. I think you're supposed to like her. I don't even know what you're supposed to do with her, but
no, but she's
just there.
Yeah, she's an awful person. Like, I just couldn't stand her, couldn't get behind her. And then it gets confusing and weird. It makes you go, wait, is this happening or is this not happening? And it's very convoluted mess. And then the ending pissed me off, where I was just like, when I messaged Heather about this movie, I said, all right, this movie was tolerable, but fuck that ending. That ending was stupid.
This is my top 10 movie of the year.
Oh, fuck off. No, this movie is like something I'm telling everybody, just don't even waste your time, because it's just, it had some decent visuals. I will give it that.
And some good beats.
Yeah, and the good beats, but like even the kills weren't anything special. It was just a mess. And yeah, I do not recommend this one at all.
Ha, that fucking cover. Oh.
Dave's like,
you know what it reminds me of, dude? Did you guys ever see that movie Smiley?
Yes, I did.
I did not,
Smiley.
actually.
It looks like the cover for Smiley, that type of face. And it's even a worse cover than Smiley. I didn't think it was possible.
Smiley's a better movie. That tells you.
Right. I believe it.
Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, Smiley is a better movie. Yeah. Now, Dave, I know you said that the one that you were referring to is already up here.
One of them is, yeah. I still have one more, but I can wait.
Oh, perfect. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you had another one.
Okay. So this one I actually enjoyed the most. It is not a typical horror movie, but it's called Happy Times. Nice. I set out to do this, and it worked.
Yeah, because I don't think I've heard of this one.
That was the plan. All right. I still got those old skills that when I used to be like you guys and I watched everything, I still went to I still knew where to search. Okay, Happy Times. A seemingly friendly dinner party erupts into a night of violence and terror at a lush Hollywood estate. Okay. Now, this is a movie. It's I want to say that they're all Jewish people, and the language, and they are speaking
Hebrew.
Yes, throughout.
Is Brandon there?
Yeah, was Brandon there? With his hair?
Right? Oh, he should have been. No, Brandon wouldn't fit in here. These are people that have money.
Hashtag truth.
I love it.
So they're like Israelites. They're like these people that I used to see that gamble in the casinos when I was there. The casting for the lead guy is perfect. He looks just like a businessman that's an Israelite that I would see come in. Everything about him, he looks so much like it. But they live in this nice area. Sometimes they speak English because one of the characters. It's kind of one of those movies where like 75% of the time they're speaking Hebrew, but also they break in and out of English because some of the characters speak a little of it. But bottom line is this: it's listed as an action comedy horror, and the comedy is very light. But it's one of these movies where they go to this dinner, and the guy has a lot of money, and it's him and his wife, and I think one of his siblings and their spouse, and then there's someone that works for the guy, and he works in the office with the husband and wife who own the house, and there's talk of this rabbi coming by, and this one guy comes in, and he's kind of like a black sheep, but he's not. He just has he's not as diehard about the faith as they are. He's kind of outspoken about how he doesn't believe what it says in their in their texts, their religious texts. And they're getting ready to pray before dinner. And he says, he calls everything out. Yeah, doesn't it say this and that? And it degrades women and this. So he's very much opposing what, the religious right of this group. But they're all related, so they don't make it a big deal. So they're kind of used to it. That's just him being him. And he brings a girl there who also is not Hebrew. She's mixed. I believe she's African American and something else. I don't remember exactly what, but one thing leads to another. There's some arguments that ensue, and it's really interesting to watch this as like a fly on the wall to see what happens here. And I can't really give anything away, but I will say this is the kind of movie that I consider fun. We get some bloody kills, and we just get to see shit hit the fan throughout the whole movie, and it's just fun in that respect. So I will recommend it if you're going to watch one movie of all the ones that I've spoken of. I would say that's the one to check out. It's called Happy Times. It's on Prime. I know that much.
Yeah, and it's on YouTube and Google.
All right.
And this sounds like something else that I would really enjoy, because I've noticed there seems to be a new subgenre of horror, and that is these dinner party movies where things happen. And I kind of want to do an episode on this at some point, like just dinner party horror, because I do tend to enjoy a lot of these types of movies when it's this type of scenario. I think it'd be kind of a fun one to talk about at some point for sure.
Yes, and there's nothing supernatural, or it isn't like The Invitation where there's a cult thing going on or anything like that. It's just there's reasons for things happening. It's just family squabbles and work squabbles and people that are, not being faithful to them, to each other, either in marriage or in business. And it's an interesting watch, and it's fun, and there's some fun kills in it. So
cool. Well,
nice.
I will, Dave. Yeah,
thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm loving hearing about these films I've never heard of before. That's kind of exciting.
Actually, Scott's really mad, and now he's writing them down. He's going to watch them before he goes out tonight on super speed, just so he can be caught up.
Right.
You think you shall beat me, Dave?
Oh, that is great.
Well, I'll tell you what I did watch. Of the four I watched, three of them do. I to give the rating, they are 7 or higher. So they did.
Oh, nice.
I did do the right thing. I think they're all rated at 7. I think Happy Times I give a 7.5. But I mean, so at least I picked the right ones. The other one, which is on your guys' list, which we're going to talk about, it wasn't bad. It's just not exactly a 7. But we'll get to that one.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm excited. All right, so I guess it is my turn again, and I think this is one that all three of us have watched. But that is the Block Island Sound. What's controlling the town on Block Island? There's a force lurking off the coast, and the wildlife and people are all behaving strangely. This is apparently available on Netflix, which I did not realize.
And only Netflix.
Yeah. This was a very interesting movie. Like, I will say right off the bat, this gave me kind of a Lovecraftian vibe. Because like basically it's about this guy that's pretty much taking care of his father, who's just been acting strange at night and will just kind of wander off and then like come back and not remember what he did. And like then his son starts kind of having the same situation happen to him, like where he's just hearing these like deep rumbling sounds, and like it's just a very atmospheric sci-fi horror mystery is how I would kind of put this. Because like people like start seeing like all the fish that start showing up on the shore dead, and like they have other people there that are investigating what's going on with the fish. But like this is one that kept me engaged from beginning to end. I was very fascinated and kind of curious to figure out what this mystery of this noise that's making people act strangely was. And like it doesn't really give you a true answer on what that is, but like I love the way this plays out from the very beginning to the end. Even the ending I thought was really well done. Like it just one of those films that like I would love to go into a deep dive discussion with one of these days, because it's just got a lot of like just kind of intricacies to it. Yeah, I would kind of like I would like to talk about this further in depth someday.
Oh, interesting. I didn't get that.
Uh-oh.
I thought it was fine. Don't get me wrong. I thought it was fine, but I felt like it was pretty much what it set up to be.
It was.
I didn't feel there was any real layers to it. But I will acknowledge that the guy that plays the father, who is Tom, was also the main antagonist from 13 Cameras and 14 Cameras.
Was it really?
Actor. Yeah.
Holy crap, it was.
Yep.
Whoa.
So, which I think is pretty cool. I thought he was great and played a super creepy role in all the films he's been in that I've seen him in. I think he's actually a pretty decent actor. So, I enjoyed it. I think it's really worth a watch. I think it's one of the 2020s that you should watch. At first, I was worried it was going to, 2021s.
I'll try to correct you as much as I can just to get you to remember it.
Sure, Scott. Fuck yourself. So the block. So what was I going to say now? I thought it was going to be like The Happening. I was really concerned at first that I like in some of the scenes. I'm like, oh my god, is this going to be The Happening? Is this what's happening? And it wasn't, so I was very happy about that. But I agree. I think the acting was really good quality. I really enjoyed the set design, but I don't think this movie was super deep.
No, I mean it's not deep. I just would like to actually just talk because there's stuff that I don't want to give away.
That's so you want to have a spoiler discussion of it?
Yes, I don't think it's like just deep and there's layers to it or anything. But I would just like to talk more in depth with it. Like I can't wait to hear Exploding Heads talk about this one.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it will be great to hear Dave and Christian talk about it. Dave, I know you're going to discuss it, so you don't need to give too much away, but is there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. It came to a point where, you're guessing about what's going on here exactly. At first, I thought this was going to be something like The Bay, and then I thought maybe this is going to be something like, what was that movie from that I really liked? Boathouse from last year.
Oh, yeah.
That's Beach where House. I thought it was going.
Beach House, yeah.
Thank you. And I'm not going to say either way where it went, but there comes a scene in the movie where somebody goes out on a boat and some things start happening and you could piece it together to be one thing. And I say to myself, please go there. This is what I want this movie to turn into. Yes. And it did.
Yes.
And it did. They don't show me. I wanted to see more of what was at play here, and they didn't show me that. And I wish they would have, because I'm kind of a sucker for that type of antagonist, but that's okay. That's fine. But I enjoyed it. It was a fine movie. The part reminded me of Scott, actually, when there was that guy in the beginning. It's kind of the conspiracy theorist guy, and and what he said reminded me of Scott. He said, these people, they're actually slaves to their cat overlords.
that is Scott for sure.
I am a slave to my cat overlords. They rule this house.
I'm glad
I'm
you
just
didn't
lucky
say
they let me stay here.
Does Scott remind you of the guy from 14 Cameras?
Oh God! Oh, God. Thank God for that.
That'd be Brandon too.
Yeah. That was Brandon's role right there.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, Mike Marion too. Yeah, absolutely. Mike, that one's for you. But yeah, so you guys can catch it out on Netflix. It's a free watch. Like if you have Netflix, I don't think you're going to be disappointed by spending some time with this film. I think it's totally worth it.
Nope. Yep. And the next one is you, Heather. I have not seen.
Oh, you haven't seen this? Oh well, hair flip here.
Hair flip here.
So this is called The Dead of Night. It's very much a modern day Western. It's a 90-minute runtime. It has Matthew Lawrence in it, which totally was the reason why I watched it, because I haven't seen him in anything in a really long time.
Yeah.
Like really, really long time. He was really good. And it was a very entertaining story. So basically, it's about a family that's being terrorized by killers. It is a little bit of a kind of a murder mystery. It's a very complicated plot, so you really need to be focused on watching it. This isn't something you can have on in the background, walk away from, and come back to. There's a lot of multiple characters in it. There's a lot of heavy dialogue. The filming is done very well. Their nighttime filming was done really well too, because sometimes nighttime filming's hit or miss. Sometimes they film it and they don't have enough light, so you can't really get the full impact. And this movie did find a nice little balance for it. As I said, it is kind of based in a Western, and it is a deeper watch. You are kind of following a saga of murders that are happening in a community and why. So 90 minutes. It's available to rent on Google, Vudu, Microsoft Office Store, and YouTube. I would say a $2.99, $3.99 rental is fair if I've described something that sounds like it would be something for you. Have you seen this one, Dave?
No, I'm kind of surprised, because this is one I took a look at and said I was going to skip based on the cover and based on what I saw. I was like, this looks very skippable to me. But
the acting's good. It's a solidly well-acted film. I'll definitely give it that. But it is a slower film, and it definitely feels the full 90 minutes. I think, Dave, you could go either way on this. Yeah. Like it's not like I wouldn't say to you, oh man, better watch it because it's going to be in your top 20 of the year. Right. But it might be a fascinating enough story for you that you would enjoy it.
Cool. All
Yeah, 'cause
right.
I remember you
So-
said that I might like it too, just
Yeah, I
because of the
know.
setting.
Well, you really like westerns and you like that kind of
Yeah.
setting, and it's a modern day western,
too.
right? So I think that you would enjoy it. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be a big hitter for people, but it's a decent enough watch. I think it's worth a rental if what we've described, heavy dialogue, a lot of characters, a murder mystery is kind of your thing. Then I think you'll enjoy this.
Nice.
Cool.
And the next one, well, actually, Dave, is when is your movie coming up?
My
that
last,
you-
no, I've got my thing. From what I'm seeing here, this is the fourth movie. This is the least favorite of my views.
Oh, all right.
Oh.
Okay, so this one is you two then, because I have not watched this yet.
Oh, okay. Well, Dave, I'll let you talk a little bit about your thoughts about the funeral home first.
Okay, this was the first one I watched, and my memory is going to be a little bit hazy because not a whole lot stood out about it for me. It was interesting because of the family dynamic, the drama everybody had to deal with, like something, because it's just a man and his wife and their daughter. Although he's the stepfather, and I'm not 100% sure if they just moved into this house. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here. And I'm not 100% sure if he has always been.
He's always lived there, and he inherited the funeral home from his family. But that was hard to figure out. I had to go back and read to figure that out.
Okay. All right. So it wasn't
So it's not
just
clear
me.
cut.
Okay. All right. This is Spanish, right?
It is. Yeah, it's from Argentina.
Right. Okay. And what I liked about it was the dynamic and what's going on there. They each have something to deal with. The daughter's real father passed away, shortly before all this has happened. But the way she feels about the man is different than the way her mother feels about the man. Apparently, the father abused the mother, but from what I gather here, he did not abuse the daughter, and she holds him in high regard.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he abused her because sometimes that still happens. Sometimes because someone can be abused as a child and still hold a parent in high regard.
Absolutely.
But they don't touch upon that. The way I get it, she sees him one way, her mother sees him another, and the guy is kind of having to deal with them too, but also having to deal with the ghost, literally and figuratively, in his life about being in that house and having to deal with his father who's passed on and his relationship with him. So we have a lot going on there, but I just think ultimately it's a little bit more generic than I'd like it to be. It's well made, but I guess that's my thoughts on as a whole.
Yeah, it's a very religious focused movie. I would say it picks up at the end. Probably the last 25 minutes are the best part of this film. It's an Uncorked film, so Uncorked picked this up, which I'm impressed of because this is something that Uncorked can add to their collection that's, compared to other Uncorked films, quite good.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
The acting's decent, but it does drag. I would say that first into second act is kind of drags out a little bit. You get a lot of character development with the family dynamics of what's going on in the first little bit. Maybe not necessary. It's an 86-minute runtime, feels like an 86-minute runtime. It is available to rent on Google, Vudu, Microsoft Store, and YouTube. I would say if you really enjoy religious-centric films, maybe you dig the whole idea of a funeral home haunting, $2.99 rental is probably fair. $3.99. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, it's worth checking out. It's definitely worth checking out. Again, like if I'm going by number rating, it's a 6.5. So it's not like I think it's a bad movie. It just wouldn't make my recommends, my 7 or 10 and higher. But it's like, I'm going to ask you a question. Maybe I missed out on something here, but I thought they were going somewhere cool, and either I missed it or they just didn't acknowledge it. They had those 3 keep showing up, those 3 caskets, those 3. Yep. Okay. And then at one time, the wife makes a comment to the husband about you dealing with some of the people in your past, almost like referencing that these are his exes possibly, or something like that. That's the gist I got from the conversation. But then I don't think that it turned into anything. Is it me, or did I just blink and miss something?
No, I think they were supposed to be the exes of, like, not his romantic exes, his past of, like, wrongdoings, because his family had this funeral home. They've had demons in this funeral home their entire life, and I think it was connected to that. And I wonder if this was just a film that we didn't fully get because we're not from Argentina and we're not part of that cultural group, and we didn't get the whole superstition that came with it, or if it was just really not written, communicated well. I feel like a lot of stuff wasn't overly communicated well, and my impression was that it was just demons that were kind of recycling through. But you could be right, Dave. That's the problem. We're not sure.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Right. Like that's the problem.
Sure.
Right. So that's our thoughts on it. Rent it if you want. I don't think you'll hate it. I don't think most people would hate it, but it's not one of the higher must watches of the year, unless of course you really dig religious films. Like if that's your go-to, then yes, you'll probably like this. Like if you enjoy religious films a lot, because there is a religious piece in there and there is like a haunting and all that other stuff. So
yeah, because I remember Mark Nato talked highly about this one.
Yeah, so Mark Nato loves religious films, though.
Yeah,
like that's his go-to.
That's his bread and butter right there.
Yeah,
he loves that stuff.
He loves it.
I like it. I like them too, but I mean, like this actually kind of fits into our main event, because doesn't the woman comes to the house?
Oh, it 100% does, Dave.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Damn, I should have watched this then. Shit.
Yeah,
there is a little of that going on, and
there is absolutely. And I honestly, that's the point I enjoyed the most. Yeah, is when that all happened personally.
Yep.
That's when I kind of got more into it, and I found that it picked up for me.
Yeah, that was good in the end, and the climax was interesting. Yeah, for sure. But I agree. The way you sum it up, I'm with you. You won't hate it. You might love it. You'll probably like it, but it's just a movie for us. I think that we saw it, we liked it. It was okay. We don't regret our time with it. Moving on.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Right. All right, Scotty.
Well, I was going to say, since you watched this one, how about you take this one and I take the last one, since I've only seen that one?
Scott, it's not fair that I have to do all the heavy listing here.
Well, I mean, you are the Friday Nightmares.
Oh, yeah, that's right. For sure. So the last movie I'll be talking about today is The Parish. So this was filmed or released or whatever in 2019, but it just got available now in 2021. It's not bad. It's a decent enough little film. I think for the budget that it worked with, it does a pretty good job. It's basically about a family that's forced to relocate, and there's some hauntings, and also could fit into our theme as of today as well. And for a movie that uses hauntings, the ghosts were done in a way that was very good for a low budget film.
Yeah,
it wasn't cheesy. It wasn't stupid. They looked at what their money was and they said, okay, how can we make this look decent? Would it, when we look at our awards, I would put this up for low budget that used their budget well. I would consider this one at this point for that award, simply because of how it did its climax. I think they put a lot of money into the climax while taking money away from other spaces that they were able to take money away from. The acting was decent enough. These were people that were obviously polishing off their acting chops. Probably will improve as they continue to go on. Yep.
And there is one recognizable person in it, which is Bill Oberst Jr. as the priest.
Yes, and then it's available for rent on YouTube, Vudu, Google Play, and Microsoft Office Store. I would say a $1.99 rental is worth your time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and this is another uncorked film, and
it is. Yeah.
So yeah, like we have two uncorked films on this list today, which is shocking because we haven't had too many yet this year.
No, we haven't.
Or we've just avoided some of the really bad ones.
Yes, we have.
But I would definitely, like you were saying, for like Ward style, like I enjoyed my time with this one, and this would probably be in my like favorite of the uncorked ones that I've seen so far.
Yeah.
They use their budget wisely, and it was a little more of a religious aspect. And I'm not a big person when it comes to religious horror, because I feel it can be just overdone. But this one I felt did it different enough to where I really was intrigued and enjoyed my time with it. This is I would say a $1.99 rental is totally worth it.
And we're assuming you haven't seen this, Dave, right?
No, I was looking at it, I was considering it, and then the release date was a little too late for me because I was watching our main event movies during the last couple of days, and I think this one just came out 2 or 3 days ago, so I wasn't able to. It was on the horizon. I was like, maybe I'll watch this, and then I, just couldn't get to it.
Yeah, I think I would be curious to hear your thoughts on it, because I think you would at least appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah, I think this is someone who, if this is a filmmaker, yet again, we always talk about this. If you're looking at making a movie one day and you want to look at low budget films done well, this is an example. This and The Special last year were two very good examples of how you can work with not a lot of budget, but still put your money where it counts to make a relatively entertaining film.
Yep, agreed.
Cool. I'm always interested in that because you see so many movies that have low budgets, and sometimes you watch a movie and you hear the budget and you're like, wow, this looks like it was made for 10 times the budget.
Yeah.
Then you watch other movies made with a similar budget, and you're like, yeah, this looks like it was made for half the budget. What's going on?
Exactly. Right. It's all about where you invest your money and how you invest it. I don't know if you've seen The Special from last year, Dave, but that movie, you would like that movie. If there's a movie to watch from 2020, if you didn't get a chance to check that out, I think you will enjoy even just the concept of it. I think you'll get a kick out of. But the practical effects in it are pretty fucking good. And your daughter might dig it. It is of a sexual nature, so maybe watch it first before your daughter sees it. Like, I don't know what you're comfortable with showing your daughter, because it is a highly sexual film. But for practical effects, I think she would dig it, and so would you.
Yeah,
I don't know why. Why didn't I see this movie?
Yeah, I would say it was one that I don't think many people had talked about either. We just kind of stumbled across it, and it was really impressive, especially for low budget.
Cool. I'm gonna put it on the list. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, definitely, Rick. I would love to hear your thoughts on that one as well, because that one is definitely a very interesting movie. I'll jump on to the final 2021 film of this evening, and that is Sacrilege. The synopsis is 4 lifelong friends head to a remote lodge for a weekend of fun. What begins as an idyllic retreat quickly descends into a fight for their lives when a local pagan cult offer them up to their goddesses as a sacrifice for the solstice. This one, I've seen the trailer, I'm going, okay, I'll give this a watch. It looks like, at least quality acting, and I love the whole, going to a cottage and something crazy happens type situations. However, the characters were just kind of I didn't really care for them one way or the other for the most part. And they make just some dumb decisions on, hey, let's go to a pagan cult or a pagan festival and party. That sounds like a great idea. And it's I'm like, I don't think I would know anybody that would just say that. So the way they get set up with the situation is not that good. If there are spoilers in here, sorry. I just don't think this is worth anybody's time. But it was okay for what it was, but it did have some iffy CGI that for some of the situations that just looked really bad and hokey. But all in all, this one was just kind of well, the trailer fooled me. Shame on me for getting sucked into it. But at the same time, I didn't hate my time with it. It was just kind of there. I would give this 5.5 out of 10.
Okay.
A little above average, but just the story itself is kind of what just wasn't there for me.
So it's available on Amazon, Google, Vudu, YouTube, and Microsoft Store, all for rent. Would you say don't rent it?
I would say $1.99 rental, maybe, if this seems like something up your alley. I would say watch the trailer, read the synopsis, and if you hear what I'm talking about and still say, this sounds like something I'll at least want to give a watch, $1.99 rental is wise. If not, don't bother.
If not, don't waste your time.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you haven't seen this, Dave, right?
No, I saw it listed somewhere and I looked it up and pondered it for a moment, but I saw a lot of bad ratings, so I just kind of left it up to the pros to venture into it.
You let this is what you do, Dave. You let other people do the dirty work, and then you watch the good shit.
It's true.
Right?
However, well, hold on now. The I did bring 3 movies here that nobody watched.
You did a great job. You actually we're wondering if you would like to replace Scott.
Oh, fair enough.
Scott's and I'm wondering if you want to replace Heather.
No, I need you guys because there is some truth to what you said. There is some truth. I do rely on certain people to do this, but I also have my own methods. But the thing is, you guys help, as does Mark Nato, as do a few other podcasts that I listen to, because that you guys will watch everything that comes out. So I will take that, and I will use that. But I also have, before people were doing this, I've been doing this for years. I still had my own methods that are, like I always say, they're 90 something percentile. I'm tried and true with it. So I got to keep riding it.
That's a pretty good percentile.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's a really good percentile. So well, we're gonna move into our older watches. I am so excited for one of them that Dave brought to the table.
I have a feeling
we get to that one because Dave and I a long time ago had a conversation about this film when I was first trying to befriend him and be cool. And we have similar views, so I'm excited for this. But I'll quickly go through mine. The Stuff, 1985. I finally watched.
Speaking of movies about consumerism.
Yeah, and The Stuff reminded me, what is that, like, marshmallow
fluff
stuff that you can buy at a store? That's
it's like marshmallow fluff, I think.
Fluff.
Is that what it's called, fluff? Oh my god.
You never had a fluffer nutter sandwich before?
Well, I've been a fluffer, but I've never had a fluffer. I've never had a fluffer nutter sandwich.
You have to.
Interesting.
Dude, wait, Heather, they have fluff in Canada, right?
Yes, they do. I just don't buy it because it looks gross.
But check it. No. It's marshmallow. How can the marshmallows be gross? Come on, listen to me. Go to the store, buy 2 slices of bread, buy some fluff, buy some peanut butter. Sit down one night. Wait till you have like a little buzz on, because I know you like to drink a little bit now.
Oh, I also like to smoke too, Dave.
Oh, then it's heavenly if you smoke. Heavenly. You are gonna love it. You put fluff on one bread. You put peanut butter on the other bread. Stamp them together.
Yep.
And have yourself a fluffer nutter. I'm telling you, it might be life changing.
It might change my life. It will be like The Stuff, and I'll just buy containers and containers of it. I honestly enjoyed this movie. I actually really like the main character, the main and protagonist. I thought he was really funny. And I love the random kid that runs away from his parents' house because
they become so addicted.
I'm so addicted to the stuff. I thought that, and I watched it on Tubi. It was a fun 1985 movie. Like, it's a fun little fluffy film. It's obviously a little more of a comedy than it is of a horror. Like, there's some scary parts, quote unquote scary parts in it. I think this would be a great movie to introduce kids to at a certain age. Like, I think it's fairly family friendly. I enjoyed it. It was good times.
And it's got a wonderful side character by the name of Chocolate Chip Charlie.
Yeah, yes. There was some odd dialogue that I'm like, oh man, you could not get away with that now.
No.
Like 1985, but you know what? It was made in 1985, and it is what it is. And it's available on Tubi, by the way. If anyone's looking to watch it for free, you can watch it on Tubi. And Blood Beach from 1980. So I had seen what I believe is the remake, but they don't quote it as the remake, which was The Sands.
Yes.
Which is about a creature that lives in the sands, and Blood Beach was about that too. And John Saxon is in this as a police, or as what is he? The head of the police department, because that's a role he always plays.
Yeah.
Right. And damn, he was great. Like, it was a fun film, and the guy from Rocky that played Paulie was in it.
Yep.
Which he says some funny shit. Yep. Great movie, great 1980 movie. I'm sad I missed it. I'm glad I got a chance to watch it now. I thought it was a really good kind of creature feature. I thought the special effects for 1980 were decent.
The creature design was a bit silly when it got revealed, but
right?
Yeah.
Like, it's I understand that there were films that did that better, but this was just jumping on to like the craze of Jaws and all that other shit, right? Alligator, everything else. So
I wish this had a better quality film, like release, because it does look like a straight from VHS rip.
Oh, it totally does, right? Don't say VHS; it's a trigger word. Christian might be listening.
Awesome. Levi Etheridge.
He's gonna start smashing tapes everywhere. I'm just kidding, Christian. Anyway. But yeah, I enjoyed both of these. It was nice to check out some hidden gems from the 80s that I had missed. So that was good times.
Yeah, I was like, because I did watch Blood Beach yesterday, because after you had watched it and told me about it, I was like, I'll check it out. And yeah, I was, for like a very low budget 80s film, I had fun with this one.
Like, you set your expectations walking into these two films, right? No one's going to walk into the stuff and go, oh man, going to be like Oscar worthy, super deep, like conversations. Like, yeah, it's about consumerism and overconsumption, environmental stuff. Like, but it's done in a comedy like way. And Blood Beach is just a beach that fucks up people, and I dig that concept. I thought that was cool. And the little interviews that they threw in with people at the beach and how like flighty they were, and it just made me want to go party at a beach though. Like, I still just want to like drink and party all the time.
Yeah, Heather, you are the party animal.
I really am. That's my best. Yeah, that's what I want to do, Dave. It's like real talk.
Me too.
See, Dave gets me. Don't worry, Dave. One day the borders were open and we'll be able to hang out in Buffalo or Niagara Falls. Either one. Right but yeah, so I guess we'll move into Dave's, because Dave's are next.
Okay, now this first one I watched because I do this thing now. Thanks to Brandon, I'm going to give him props, because I do this thing called Fringe February now. January is my month where I watch non-horror movies or sometimes catch up on old horror movies that I don't like to that I haven't had a chance to watch or whatever that I haven't seen before. So that's what I do in January. Now because there's been so many fringe movies, fringe horror the last 2-3 years, and some of them I skipped, I decided to watch them in February. So a certain title spilled over into Fringe February. Now this was a movie that I was actually looking forward to. It's a regular horror movie. So it's not even a fringe flick, but I watched this particular movie from 2020. And the reason I didn't watch it is because other people spoiled it for me and they compared it to this movie, which I actually watched. So what I did was my wife and myself and my daughter, we sat down, we watched this 2020 movie, and then I had a little discussion after, and then I said, okay, now, and my wife knows about The Village, but my daughter does not. Like, you guys, you have to see The Village now. Okay, so we sat down and we watched ourselves M. Night Shyamalan's The Village, 2004. Now, going into this, I'm going to tell everybody that I've said for years that this is my favorite Shyamalan movie. I think it gets a lot of hate. So the reason I thought I'd watch it or bring it up here now is because maybe, just maybe, if there's anybody out there who hasn't seen it since the first time they've seen it, and anything I say is going to put it in their head to watch it again, please do. If you've only seen this movie once and you were pissed off at the reveal, or you were expecting a regular horror movie and didn't get that, cast all that aside. Second view is very important. You know what happens now. Now just go in and take the movie for what it is. You know what it is now. But the reason I encourage people to watch this movie is I think it's a great movie. I think it's very well made. I think the acting is great. The performances, I think just as a film, it's his best made film, Shyamalan. I think that what happens, the reveals that happen later, it all makes sense. There's commentary here. There's things going on between the characters that are so deep. It's actually a great love story. There's certain scenes in this movie that I don't think anybody paid attention to the first time they saw it. And to go back now and take it and see that there's so much going on here beneath the surface, I know I sound like I'm blowing it, but I really do think it's that good a film. I think it's an excellent movie. And I think everybody who's only seen it once and blew it off should give it one more chance and just take it as a movie. Now, Heather, I hope that you're talking about, you and I have, because it couldn't be the other one, because the other one was a first time watch for me. So it has to be this. I hope you're going to come in and say,
it absolutely is. And I agree with you 100%. I think it's one of the best movies that M. Night Shyamalan made. And when I saw this, I was 21 when it came out. And I think I rented it. I can't remember. Yeah, I think I rented it. And I would have given it a standing ovation. I thought the twist was phenomenal. I thought the message was great. I thought it was really unique at the time. And I think, unfortunately, it was too early. I think if this came out now, people would rave. They would be like, what a great film. So different. But I think in 2004, it was just not what people were expecting. And they felt it was a letdown, where I felt that ending was, or the twist or whatever you want to call it, was beyond brilliant.
I think it was the marketing, Heather. That's what I think was the problem with it. People were expecting a straight up horror movie and they got something else. It's okay.
Yeah, because I'm right there with you guys. Like I really do enjoy this film. Like because I've heard people complain about the twist and everything, and I'm going, I watched it and I went, that twist completely caught me by surprise, and bravo. Like
you didn't see that coming until she walks on the highway, and we're going to spoil it because it's The Village from 2004. If you have not seen The Village from 2004, like, I don't know what rock you're living under. It's shocking. Like, it's shocking. And how they tried so hard to create a society to avoid murder and jealousy and revenge, and it found them anyway because of human nature.
Yep.
Right. And I agree, Dave. I think things went down for M. Night Shyamalan from here. The only one I kind of also enjoy is Split.
Yes.
You know, like the found footage
The Visit.
one?
The one to the grandmother's house, The Visit?
Yep.
Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, I like that one too. I never saw the one in the pool.
Yeah, Lady in the Water. Yeah, I never bothered that one.
So, I think he has a very unique way of looking at films, but I agree. A lot of people shit on this movie, and it's a shame. And I 100% agree, Dave. People should do a rewatch. It's coming up to this movie being almost 20 years old.
Which is crazy.
Right? And I think it really was released before its time. I think there's always films out there that get released and then other films will, jump onto that concept, and then all of a sudden it's a popular concept to do and people rave about it, right? So yeah, thanks for bringing it up today.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad you guys like it. Like I said, I hope I change one person's mind. Just go back and watch it now with the knowledge, and maybe you'll appreciate, because I think there's so much more. There is actually a podcast. Jay from a Movie Podcast Weekly with Watson and Shandy Dreadful.
Yes.
He has a sidecast called Considering the Cinema, and he was originally on Horror Movie Podcast. Jay of the Dead, in case you don't know who that is, but he has a solo cast called Considering the Cinema. Well, The Village is his all-time favorite movie, and he put out a podcast. It was like almost a 3-hour podcast, and he brought in guests and a couple different ones and broke things down. And to hear him talk about it, he brought up a few points that even I didn't think about watching it this time, and it made me appreciate it even more. It's really It's a great love story. There is so much going on here, and there are so many little scenes that you just didn't pick up on the first time. And for me, the twist, it's almost inconsequential. I like it, but it's like most of my enjoyment for the movie has nothing to do with the reveal at all. It's just everything else, honestly. Yeah, that's how good I think it is. I do appreciate what gets revealed and everything else, and how you said they tried to escape it, and look what happened. And and can you really run away from it, and everything that goes on there. But I just think it's a damn fine film is what it comes down to. I think it's it's had a bad rap for too long.
I agree with you, Dave, 100%. Yeah.
Cool. All right. And the other one, complete opposite. This is nothing but fun. And it's a movie I've owned for a little while and have not watched it. And I had to watch it for two reasons, because it's a blind spot for me for a movie that stars the great Miss Linnea Quigley from the 80s, who I mean, from now too, but I say from the 80s because for me, growing up in that time period, being born in 72 and getting into horror in 82 and watching everything, she was just as big a part of the scene for me and my friends as was Tom Savini, as was Friday the 13th, as was different things going on there. Anything that was going on with Linnea, we wanted to know. We loved her. She was beautiful. She was fun. She was like a rock star to my friends and I. So anything straight horror that she was in, we saw. And I don't know why I never watched this movie. I don't know, maybe it was marketed a different way, more as a straight up comedy. And it is comedy, but I mean, it still was a horror thing, but I just had to watch it because it was a Friday night. I said, I'll have a little fun. I'm going to finally watch this movie. And what's cool about this is that we get to see Linnea in a different type of role. She actually, she plays a badass. And for the first time that I could think, she is not sexualized. And when I'm saying sexualized, it sounds like I'm saying something that's bad. I don't mean it. She doesn't use her sexuality whatsoever in this film. Doesn't even show any part of her skin. It has nothing to do with her presentation. She just is a badass character who's up to something. But then she has a character arc. She does have heart, and everything else. And you do love the character, but it's just a different type of portrayal for her. So I'm really glad I watched it. It's fun. It's about these people. There's a sorority. They have some new pledges coming in. So we have 3 girls that are running the show, and they're pledging a couple girls. And then they have these 2 peep guys that are coming around that are peeping in the windows to see what's going on. They're having this little initiation, and they get busted. So as part of the initiation, these girls have to go to this empty bowling alley and, I don't know, steal a trophy. It's a college prank thing. So they go in there and they go to steal the trophy. They drop the trophy. The boys end up having to go with them. It's their punishment for being, peepers and peeping toms. So they go in there, and the other girls are going to play jokes on the ones that are running it. And when they drop this one trophy that they're supposed to get, it's like an Aladdin and the magic lamp thing, and they rub it, and this thing comes out, and it's something called an imp, and it's this rubbery creature thing, which is a little bit goofy, but it still does it's like the old, it's not Gift of the Magi, the hand, what is that, the monkey's paw? It's one of those things
Nice.
If you make a wish, okay, it's going to happen, but eventually the wish is going to come back to haunt you a certain way. And this imp gives everybody wishes. Hell breaks loose. We see something. Linnea's in there strictly because she just happened to be breaking in this bowling alley to rob it, because she's this criminal and she's all by herself. She's this badass chick going in there to rip off these cash registers or vending machines and be on her way. And she gets sucked into the situation. And it's just a fun movie. And if you're into the 80s and those type of movies, it's definitely worth checking out. So
that's awesome. Thanks for bringing it, Dave.
Yeah, I watched this last year for a first time watch, and it was just so silly and so 80s, but it was just one of those where it's just like turn your brain off and enjoy, because the imp is hilarious, and like the guy that voices him is just like the things he says just cracks me up.
Yeah.
But yeah, this
Oh,
was,
sure.
I found it just a like fun, cheesy 80s film just to enjoy. It was definitely worth watching if you haven't seen it.
That's
Yeah, I
sick.
think it's on
Awesome.
Shudder too. I think it's on
Yes,
Shudder.
it
Oh,
is.
nice.
Yep, that's where I
Yeah.
watched it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Have you
Okay.
seen it, Heather, or no?
No, but I'm totally gonna check this shit out. You've sold me.
Yeah,
Hook, line,
Right on.
sinker. Yeah.
you would love it, because I was thinking, I'm like, okay, sorority babes, okay, this could be lots of nudity and like just kind of like, you know,
Oh, which is
silly
something
like
that
it
you
is, but-
definitely don't like, Scott.
yeah, I know, right? But I know.
Oh, titties.
Ew, gross. Naked women. Ew.
Ew.
And
no.
you know, it's a very attractive cast too. I mean,
It is.
Linnea isn't her regular self, but the other, it's like Brink Stevens is in there,
Nice.
and what's her name? There's all kinds of geez, let me see, because I know there's some other names. Girls that, you know, women that were in these roles at the time. Yeah, Brink Stevens, of course. Michelle Bauer, that's the other one. Carla B. You know, these people. George Buckflower has this strange part in there, which you know, he's funny as always. But they probably had him for like a day or two, and you know, but it's fun. And again, like I said, I'm a Linnea Quigley completist. I want to see them all because, like I said, I grew up with her, and I watched the In Search of Darkness Part 2. I got a screener for it. It's going to be released again. This is this whole thing with it, but you guys saw that one, right?
Yeah, we saw that one.
Yep.
It was great.
Well,
Great.
part 2. Have you seen the second one yet? Or
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
long. But man,
it
is
is
it
same
good.
thing.
Yeah.
So, but she was all over it, and she wasn't in the first one.
No.
So I was like, I'm so glad they included her in this. And I even sent her a message on Facebook because, you know, I'm friends with her. And I remember I was so excited. She sent me a friend request one day, and I said, "Look at that!" I took a freaking screen cap of it, and I sent it to my friend. I go, "Look at this!" I so fanboyed. I go, "Look who I'm talking to, and look who just sent me a friend request on Facebook." It was like the most exciting thing between that and the time Tom Savini liked something I said on Twitter. Those are like my big fanboy moments.
Well, they're pretty awesome, Dave. In all fairness, that's some pretty
yeah.
hardcore rating rates for sure.
I was so happy. So I sent her a message telling her, I said, I just finished watching In Search of Darkness 2. I'm so glad you were included. It made the experience even better because to have you there and you were such a big part of the 80s growing up. And she's like, anytime I talk to her, she responds back. She's a real sweetheart. So
that's amazing. That's nice to hear.
Yeah, it really is. So
that's
anyway,
awesome, Dave. That's so
sorority
cool.
babes. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Scotty, take us home with your two.
All right. Well, this first one I watched because Heather did a guest spot on the Cemetery Gates podcast, and this film was one of the films that she had to review. And Xander Kane on the show pretty much said, I have to watch this and give it a review because he wanted to know my thoughts, and Heather relayed the message to me. So, Xander, here you go. I am talking about Blood-Sucking Pharaohs in Pittsburgh from 1991. The only place I was able to find this is on YouTube. For right now,
the finest that YouTube has to offer.
You know me, I always resort to YouTube when I can. But this is about two detectives that are trying to solve a case about this killer that is basically doing like Egyptian style ritualistic killings. And when watching this, I'm going, what the fuck am I watching? This is so ridiculous. Like, it's blatant comedy. Like, it's absolutely silly and over the top and ridiculous. But I enjoyed the characters in this quite a bit, especially the one detective's wife, who is like just always like saying, you think she's hotter than me, don't you? And he's literally talking about a woman that got her brain scooped out at this investigation. And she's like, she's hotter than me. Isn't that what you're saying? He's like, she just had her brain scooped out. No, that's not what I'm saying. But that just like the story itself was just so over the top and ridiculous. Like, this is definitely one of those films I would not recommend to everybody. But like, if you are into this, just like watching movies that are just like, what the fuck, this is so bizarre, and you enjoy like low budget practical effects and like just cheesy, in your face, corny acting, because they know this movie is not serious and they don't take it seriously.
No, they definitely do not take themselves seriously.
Yeah, and I have to say, it's not the greatest movie I've ever seen, but I had a fun time with this one. It was so ridiculous. I would recommend this to specific people for sure to watch. So yeah, Xander, thank you for suggesting this. And honestly, when I first watched it, I was like, I'm not too sure how I'm feeling about this. Then I listened to you guys talk about it on the podcast, and it kind of made me think about it a little more and go, yeah, I like this a little more than I was giving it credit for at first. Like you guys kind of swayed me on it.
Yeah, it's cheese. Like it's up there.
Yeah.
Those boys, man, they always get me to watch the weirdest shit.
Yes, they do. And I have to say, you also brought a movie that fit perfectly with what they were watching. So
yeah, I tried.
Yeah, and I watched that one too, but I won't talk about that one this time. Maybe next episode I'll bring that one up. But the next movie I'm gonna talk about is one that's actually a sequel to something that's in our main topic, because I've never seen any of the sequels to it, and that is Poltergeist 2, 1986. Now, obviously Poltergeist 1 is a classic, and I've heard there is definitely like some sort of a cult following when it comes to part 2 because of Reverend Kane. Which honestly, to me, that was the highlight of this movie, was Kane himself, because he's just very creepy and just like unsettling when he's on screen. But the rest of the movie just didn't work for me. It didn't have the charm that the first one had, and it didn't have the like dread that the first one had as well. But like the only thing that this movie had going for it, honestly, was just Reverend Kane. Like, because I will say they brought the entire cast back, which is cool. So everybody is playing their roles back from the same family. And like it literally ties into what happened in the first film, and it just kind of follows them. But yeah, it didn't land that well for me. Just Kane, pretty much. So like it was okay. I'm glad I watched it. I'll eventually get to part 3 just because I've never seen it as well. Just as I'm a completionist, so once I start a trilogy or a franchise, I'll eventually get to the point where I finish them all off.
Awesome.
Keep your expectations low for part 3. If you thought part 2 was just decent, definitely keep your expectations low for 3.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, because a lot of people really like part 2, and I do like it, but I do understand where you're coming from as well. But I've seen it so many times now. It's just one of those movies that I don't love, but I've just watched so many times over the years. I think it used to be on cable a lot when I was a kid and everything else. And I have more fun with it than you do. I love everything that happens with when he drinks when Craig T. Nelson drinks the tequila and the worms inside, and the thing with the kid in the braces, and the end chase when things are. There are some things I like, but they kind of also toyed around with the mythology a bit when they went back to the house. So what they were saying there didn't quite make sense. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but it was just like, I'm glad I watched it, but yeah, it's not something I could see myself revisiting anytime soon, honestly.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Let's move into what we've been listening to. And Dave, I know you listen to a bunch of podcasts. We'll leave the best for last, and you can think of one that you just want to give a shout out to. So the one I'm going to give a shout out to is one of our Legion friends, which is the BD Clinic. First of all, I absolutely love the promo for this. I think the voice, I think it's Vanessa.
Yep.
And she's super sexy. Let's just put it this way. Like, her voice is like smooth caramel to your ears. It is just amazing. Her and Darren dissect movies. They have the waiting room, which is where they go over different books and other things that they've been reading, and they dissect a movie. And one of the episodes that I really enjoyed was their episode they did around the Christmas season, and they did Clue, and they had Court Psyops and another gentleman on there, and I can't remember his name right now. That was a guest. That's also another podcaster. And it was just a really fun discussion about Clue, because I think Clue's actually a really good movie, and I'm surprised it's never been remade. Maybe
they're trying, actually.
Are they trying? Because I guess the board game doesn't have the same popularity maybe now that it did back in the 80s, but man, that was a great film, and Tim Curry in it, and is it Jason Lloyd? Not Jason Lloyd. Yeah, Jason Lloyd.
Jason Lloyd.
What is his name? Lloyd.
Christopher Lloyd.
Yes.
Yeah. Christopher Lloyd, not Jason Lloyd. That's what he's doing now. He's in movies. He's getting a portfolio. But yeah, anyway, they did a great job of discussing that. I strongly recommend, if you want to listen to a man and a woman go back and forth and have a very deep discussion, Vanessa and Darren are your people for that. They're also very political. They do like to talk about politics quite a bit, so you do have to kind of be into that. And you can find that on the Legion Podcast Network, and we'll include links if you would like to subscribe and check out other Legion shows.
Yep, because I do enjoy the VD Clinic. It's very entertaining show.
Yeah, and they're fun. They're really fun, and they're really good together. And
yeah,
I like seeing another male-female team. It's always fun stuff.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I guess I could just jump into another one of our Legion podcasts that I've been listening to recently, and that is Bite Size Cinema. Once again, I am giving some love to good old RJ McCready, who did that I talked about on the Mystery Vault podcast last episode. But yeah, this is like his main flagship show that he does, where he reviews a single movie and will pretty much go into details about how that was done, how the filmmaking and all this stuff, and then he will go through kind of a shortened version of scene by scene review of the movie. This last episode I listened to was the most recent one, which was 28 Days Later, and he ended up just kind of going through that scene by scene, which actually listening to that show really made me want to go back and rewatch that movie because it's been a very long time since I've seen it. And also that makes me want to watch 28 Weeks Later because I have never seen that, and that'd be a good one to add to first time watches. But yeah, I'm going to be short and sweet with this because, yeah, it's just, it's very easy to listen, maybe 35 minutes to an hour long, depending on what the movie is. But, it's RJ McCready, so I love hearing his voice. He's got that wonderful accent. Gotta love listening to that. And just, yeah, he is a very good podcaster, knows his stuff, goes into great detail about everything. So, yeah, definitely check him out on the Legion Podcast Network.
Awesome. And Dave, do you have one that you want to share?
Yeah, there's one. There are two in particular that I always shout out when somebody asks me because no one ever seems to talk about them. And one is horror related and one is not. So I'm going to talk about the horror related one. It's a show called the Buzz to Kill podcast.
Ooh.
And I never heard anybody talking about them, and they've been around for quite a bit. That they are 229 episodes in now, and they're almost weekly. They almost never miss a week. They're from Michigan, Scott. They're
oh, cool.
Really?
Yeah, they're two lads from exactly where. Well, they always refer to the one place as Bad Axe, so I guess they.
Oh yes, Bad Axe is Bad Axe is actually a town that some of my family actually lives in.
Okay, so they're near there.
Nice.
And they have their shows. They're never too long. They're like a 90 minutes usually, but they're very formulaic. You know what you're going to get every time, and they have a lot of fun. They come on and they have a different beer each time, and the beer that they drink always has something to do with the movies they're going to cover because they'll cover two movies. For example, they'll say, I'll pick something out. Okay, episode 226, Home Sweet Home. Okay, so they're talking about, this just happens to be two movies called Sweet Home, one from 1989 and one from 2015. Now, that doesn't usually happen. It's usually two movies that are connected in some way. They have a topic and they do it. So they'll come on, they'll intro the show, they'll BS for 10, 15 minutes. They're two lifelong friends. They record in the same room, mostly since COVID, maybe not exactly all the time, but you get that feeling of, these two buddies that have known each other for so long, and they come in there and they have some fun. They do a little thing called the bleed feed, which is a little bit of news. They talk about just for a couple minutes. And then they talk about the drink and the beer that they're going to have and how it's going to relate to the show. And they have a toast and they have a sip. And they do that. And they talk about, for a few minutes, they'll talk about Blu-ray releases that have been announced or coming out. So they maybe spend half an hour on a fun intro. And then they'll talk about 45 minutes after that about the two movies. And they'll just do a review and they'll just have fun. But they're on point. They have a good sense of humor. They do good reviews. It is a show that I've said for years should get more love. I tried to get them on on Horrorphilia for the longest time, but Jason wasn't accepting any new shows from the outside. He just, as he was starting to wind things down the last couple of years, he basically said, here's what we'll do. If anybody that's on the network wants to start a new show, that's okay. The feed's already here and everything else, but I don't want to welcome anybody else from the outside in at this point. So there was no option there. But it's really a shame that I don't hear anybody talk about them. I don't think their listenership is all that big. I've never missed an episode. And I contribute a little bit sometimes on their Twitter and, things like that. But they really should be heard by more ears. They are called the Buzzed Kill Podcast. So check them out.
Awesome.
Nice. I actually just subscribed to them, so I'll be giving them a listen.
Cool. Awesome. Well, you got a lot of catching up to do if you like it.
Yes, I do.
Dave, Scott, get on that.
Like them.
Right. I will definitely.
So we will
Cool.
be back with Dave C, and we will be breaking down our topics. So before then, just a brief message from one of our Legion podcast friends. So after these messages, we'll be right back.
Cha-cha.
Once there was a show called the Not So Evil Episode Sidecast. It was a long name, bad name. No one could ever remember it. They released 25 episodes of brilliant film criticism.
And like that, he's gone.
Now, 6 months later,
We're back.
I didn't know we were gone.
We've got a brand new name, new movies to review, but the same old attitude.
Foul language and obscure references? Count me in.
Each episode, we pick a topic, watch 4 movies related to that topic, then bicker amongst ourselves to decide which film is the best.
We're the Theme Warriors!
Join Heiress, Jeffrey X. Martin, Doug Tilley, and myself for Theme Warriors. 4 people, 4 movies, 1 dynamite show. Catch us on iTunes, Stitcher, and the Horrorphilia Network of podcasts, as well as the Legion Podcast Network.
That's the Theme Warriors. Don't want to sleep no more.
Who are you people?
Welcome back. Our main topic today is paranormal investigators go into a haunted house. But we chose some good movies to discuss this topic with. So we will be having a little bit of discussion of different movies that have kind of jumped onto this whole paranormal investigation phenomenon that's happened. I don't even know where it came from. I feel like one day I just turned on TV and there was a billion paranormal investigator shows that showed up. So I wanted to learn a little bit more about where this all came from. So, of course, there's been some articles written. So the one article that we're citing at the beginning of our topic is Give Us a Sign of Your Presence, Paranormal Investigation as a Spiritual Practice. So this was written by Mark A. Eaton, and it's found in the Sociology of Religion, Volume 76, Issue 4 in the winter of 2015. So we'll have obviously a link on there if you, for some reason, want to read the article. So he starts off by talking about for the past 40 years, confidence in organized religions have been declining in the United States. In 1975, 68% of Americans reported having a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in the church and organized religion. But by 2012, this percentage had slipped to 44. Gee, I can't imagine why. Likewise, church attendance has declined in the United States since the 1960s. Probably a lot of this has to do with people working Sundays and weekends as well, but yeah, that's fine. This is not to say that Americans are abandoning faith, though. Through a recent study indicates that self-identified atheists in the United States nearly doubled, so 1.6% to 3.1% between 2007 and 2014. This percentage is consistent with 7 years of data showing that only 2 to 4% of Americans identify as atheists, so believers in nothing. People in the United States are, I shouldn't say nothing, that not believing in spiritual power.
Yes.
People in the United States are not necessarily losing faith, but rather diversifying their engagement to what they perceive to be supernatural or the divine. Modern religion in Western nations is characterized by the idea of a spiritual marketplace. So much like the spiritualists of the latter half of the 19th century who attempted to communicate with the departed through spiritual rappings, seances, and Ouija boards, contemporary paranormal investigators are driven by a desire to confirm for themselves and others that there is the existence of life beyond death, which is just religion in another tone. So the spiritual overtones of this practice have been documented by Baker and Batter, who's obviously there's writers quoting. He reported that paranormal investigations are influenced with religion and magical beliefs. Likewise, also kind of following the same kind of tone of ghosts, extraterrestrials, Bigfoot, and psychic phenomenon strongly predict the belief in guardian angels. The spiritual significance of paranormal belief is not restricted to ghosts and haunting. There's also a belief in UFOs as well as extraterrestrial. Thank you. Are often influenced with spirituality. Too many words, and I'm getting all tongue-tied. I'm just, really overwhelmed about all the spirits, and they're talking to me.
Yes, you're speaking in tongues now.
That's right. Paranormal teams usually include a combination of members who identify themselves as scientific. So they're reliant upon technology to monitor the environment, sensitive, reliant upon extrasensory perceptions such as seeing, hearing, and otherwise sensing the presence of spirits. This mix of medium and as well as using scientific investigation to echo the spiritual movement. Much like their predecessors a century and a half ago, contemporary paranormal investigators differ in their techniques but are motivated by a shared desire to capture the evidence of life after death and to make some great TV shows from it. I added that into the bottom of that article. So currently over 3,000 paranormal investigation teams exist in the United States. And I feel like every single one of them has a fucking television show, and more exist worldwide. Paranormal investigators use a wide variety of investigative methods in their attempts to find ghosts and therefore life after death. So, of course, when we look at an article like this and we talk about movies reflecting society, we have a group of people who have decided to make movies about this phenomenon. And obviously there's a bunch of TV shows out there as well too, but we focused on 4 main movies that we each brought to the table where we, paranormal investigation is used as a main focus in the film. How well was it used? Did it flow the way we were expecting it to? Was it realistic? Was it not? We're going to get into that discussion. So why don't we have Scotty lead us off with the first film?
All right. So the first film of our topic this evening is The Haunting, which was released on August 25th of 1963. It was directed by Robert Wise and adapted from The Haunting of Hill House novel. When Dr. John Markey, a scientist, invites Eleanor and Theodora to the ancient Hill House to investigate reports of paranormal activities in the mansion, things start getting out of hand.
Dun, dun, dun.
This is a first-time watch for me as well, and this is like a very well-known film, I believe, because obviously The Haunting of Hill House that came out on Netflix took this story on and just expanded on it.
I thought, and also The Haunting. Remember the one with Catherine Zeta-Jones, and she's super sexy in it?
Yeah, and I think it had Owen Wilson's first appearance in film as well.
Yeah.
Like that was the remake from, what was it, the 90s?
Yeah, I believe 1999.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1999.
But yeah, this was a very interesting watch and a very good choice for this topic, I feel. Like it's definitely like covers like with the whole investigators coming to a specifically haunted mansion to figure out if this is actually a truly haunted scenario or not. So I just want to kind of go with our guest first, but Dave Z, what did you think?
Okay, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to tell you what I liked first, and then I'm going to tell you what I disliked. And what I liked is the narration. I liked getting into the head of our lead here, Eleanor. And I really enjoyed getting into her backstory. And, she has issues going on. She never feels like she truly belongs. And how she feels that what's happening here when she's going to Hill House is going to be something that's going to be a life-changing event. And you feel for her. You don't know what exactly is going on with her. You get a touch of it in the beginning, but I liked that aspect of it. I like what's with the idea of the investigator, Mr. What's his name?
Markway.
John Markway.
John. Call me John. Yes.
Call him John. We're on first name friends. We're all friends here.
Yeah, Call Me John comes in, and I get the motivations of the different characters are cool. John doing his thing, the doctor, and then the other gentleman who's coming in, who's going to be the eventual owner of this. And I always say I'm a sucker for this. I love when you get the backstory of something.
Yes.
When the movie opens and you say, okay, this house was built at this time, and then this happened, and these are these inhabitants, and then this happened. They suffered a tragic death. This one hung herself. This one, I am a sucker for. You could put that. That's something that is sorely lacking in a lot of modern movies. Sometimes you see it. They do it in Oculus. They do it in Clown a little bit. They go into the mythology, that movie Clown. And sometimes they still do it. I always consider a throwback to the 80s, though, because that was like a big thing back then. Of course, this is, 1963. But I mean, I like those aspects of it. But I really like Theo. I like the character.
Yeah, I love Theo.
Yeah.
She's really
excellent
cool
character.
Right. And I kind of think that she's gorgeous as well. I like her character. I like all the stuff going on here, but I also like the breathing door effects. I think that's a highlight of the movie.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So cool. Ahead of its time for all that stuff. The climax I really like, and I like the end of the movie. Okay, those are all my likes. Now I'm going to say something which I don't think is going to be popular because I know how the general public horror fans feel about this movie. This is the second time I've seen this movie. The first time it was last year. We watched it for Exploding Heads, and I was hoping that my thoughts would change this time. But honestly, this is a movie that I think it's a 2-hour runtime or an hour 55, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I legitimately think, and I'm not saying this to be a smart ass or anything, I think you could have cut 30 minutes out of this film and it would have been a much better movie. I find it a little bit too talky and a little bit too dull.
I'm kind of on the same page with you on that one because like the 2-hour runtime is a bit much for this story. I feel like it could have easily been shortened down because one thing that this kept bringing like to my head like to make me think like a movie that I wanted to continue to compare this to, even with like although I was trying not to, is Legend of Hell House. Like that one, and Legend of Hell House did that where it was an hour and 20, around 90-minute runtime. And it was short, concise, and to the point. And I wish
now, was that also a Paranormal Investigation?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because that was one I almost brought up. Like we wanted to try doing movies we hadn't like the picks for us. We wanted to do stuff we hadn't seen before.
Yeah, we wanted to pad our numbers. So this is why we chose movies that we hadn't seen before.
But
yeah, it's okay.
But yeah, the hour and a half runtime would have been a perfect for this film, I think, and would have made it just a lot easier to digest.
And I agree with both of you. I think when you're doing a paranormal investigation film, I agree. The backstory with Hugh Crane and his wives were very important to build up the reason why you're going to the house. You know, we need a reason why paranormal shit has happened here and why we're going to go. And angry spirits and mysterious deaths and a child being, locked in their room and basically left to die, and a servant killing herself. Like all this sets up for perfect paranormal investigation. But I agree with you, Dave, that it was a little too talky and it just pulled out that paranormal investigation too much. You had too many repeats of the same thing, where you could have just had some really good concrete scenes, like where Eleanor and Theo are in the bedroom the first time that haunting happens. That could have been the main focus of, here's a paranormal, how are they going to investigate this? And I felt like the investigation piece of this, like I wasn't quite sure, was Dr. John Markaway trying to prove it or disprove it? Like what was his stance?
His motivation was
quite
unclear.
Get that.
Yeah.
Like did he agree that there was hauntings, or did he not agree there was hauntings? And I found that was the confusing part for me.
Yeah, because I think he was trying to prove that there were, just for the fact that his wife shows up later trying to convince him that it's not, where he's believing that it is. So that's the only kind of reason I'm thinking maybe he's trying to prove that it is. But yeah, like his motivations weren't very clear, honestly.
Yeah. Like I just didn't get that piece. So
you know what it reminds me of, without saying as much? Remember, you guys have seen 1408, right?
Yes.
I have not actually.
I have, yeah.
Okay. Well, in 1408, John Cusack's character, I believe it's John Cusack, is I believe he's a writer, and he makes a living off disproving hauntings and other things like that. And that's his gig. And he goes to room 1408 at this hotel because he is looking to try to explain, to disprove it.
Yeah.
But I think there's also a part of him that also, to coin that phrase, I want to believe.
Yes.
I think that's what it is. And they have different reasons for them wanting to believe. It's explained in 1408 in that. I don't think it comes off here, but I think that's the vibe I got, is that he's disproven things, and he's going to continue to search, not necessarily expecting it to happen. And probably, if put a gun to his head, do you believe in it? He's probably going to say no. But I do believe that he wants to see something. He wants proof of life after death. That's what I look. Because I think, isn't that what a lot of people do? I mean, that's, as human beings.
That's what the article was, right? That's where people, we may moved away from traditional religion involvement, but that means we haven't moved away from the belief of an afterlife, or wanting to know what happens when our heart stops beating and our brain stops working. what happens to the rest, our souls, quote unquote, right? Absolutely, Dave. I think you're 100%. Maybe he is definitely sitting on the verge. And I think to go back to your point earlier about some things being, dragged out here, the scene where Theo and Eleanor move into the same room, they fall asleep in the bed, and Eleanor feels the crushing of the young girl's hand. She thinks it's Theo holding her hand, but it's actually the ghost. I never got why that would have been a perfect opportunity to go through the house as a paranormal investigator and maybe found a diary of the young girl talking about her last days.
Yeah, because they really don't actually do any true investigation of the house. No. They just kind of live in there and just kind of see if anything happens.
Right. And stuff happens, like they get distracted with the dog going out. Like they chase a make-believe dog that doesn't exist outside, or noises outside. And they all stick around in the house. And you know what? I always find this shit's funny, right? I did a tour once of something here near me called Dundurn Castle. And we were the last people on the tour. There was 2 of us in the tour guide. And we went all through the kitchen. And throughout this old, home/castle, there were bells, because servants would ring the bell to get service, right? Or whatever. And we're standing at the front. We finished the tour. We're getting ready to leave, and all of a sudden the fucking bell goes off. And we turn to the tour guide and we go, "Oh, there's other people here." And he's like, "No, I got the fuck out of that fucking house. I'm gonna tell you 2 right now." I was like, I like to think I'm brave, and I would be like, "Hey, ghosty." No, I was like, "All right, ghost, peace. Have a good night. I see you're done. I got it. No problem." So I always find it interesting that people stick around when shit like this starts happening. They're like, "Oh my God, the door is breathing. We should stay." I always find that
but I guess if you are a paranormal investigator, you would want to stay to kind of figure it out. But
the other people weren't.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because there was only one true paranormal investigator in this group. And
but they had reasons. Remember, that's what I like about the movie. That's one of the pluses, is that the people, remember, they said that half the people chickened out. They invited more, they didn't show, and this. But people that were there, they all had a vested interest. They were all different reasons. They wanted to stick it out, especially Eleanor, because
Eleanor was drawn to the place.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's actually one thing I wanted to bring up too, is this house. I just love the setup of this house, because they even talk about how the doors and everything are off angle, and the doors will just kind of slowly close on their own, or they'll open on their own. And everything is just built just at this wrong angle. So it also just kind of gives that vibe, okay, was this house built to house paranormal entities? Was this meant to be a place just because of how off
just
and
a bad
weird
contractor?
Yeah, exactly. But I like that idea about that, where it's just there's all these wrong angles in the house, and just everything is just kind of off kilter just a little bit. And then you get that scene with Eleanor where she's drawn to the staircase, the spiral staircase, where she's going up, and just in her head just kind of talking out loud, but it seems like she's wanting to believe there is something there that's drawing her even closer. And I really do enjoy a lot of what Eleanor goes through in this. It's very interesting. And I'm just there's just certain things where we were saying it's a bit too talky. I would have liked to seen something happen a little more, because this was very it felt like it wasn't the house was actually trying to harm them or anything like that. It almost just felt kind of like a joke house in a way, or a fake haunted house you'd go to during Halloween, where it's just oh, door closes for no reason, oh, opens up for no reason, something just to kind of spook you a little bit. There wasn't a lot of true haunting, it felt like.
But isn't that more of a true haunting? If we think of the haunting,
in a realistic haunting,
right?
I guess that is true.
And Hugh Crane comes down with all the children. I remember seeing that ending scene, and I was like, okay, CGI, stop getting so excited. But this is more subtle. This, one of our questions we have on here is, is this percent paranormal investigators or paranormal investigation and realistic stance? Yeah, it probably does. This is probably more realistic. You would hear voices, doors would close on their own.
I did forget about the voices. Okay, yep. Yeah.
Right? Maybe this is, also it's 1963 and their limits to be what they could do, but maybe it's that more subtle haunting that's more scary.
Yes.
Right.
And that's what he says too. Keep in mind, this is coming from the perspective of somebody that we are saying is probably a non-believer, a man of science who has hope. But I took it a different way. When he said that it was built a certain way and that the doors were going to close because of that, I thought that was just him giving a scientific explanation for what is truly a haunting. And that was his way of describing it. I could be wrong, but that's what I got from it. And then they also make a point to say that in there's no proof in all of human existence of a ghost actually harming a human being.
Yeah.
And they say that as well. So we're not going to see that type of haunting
Right.
in this movie.
Yeah.
Although we do see people kill themselves. So, I mean, that's, but so nobody else thought that maybe that dude was just saying that as a way to pass it off as a man of science. Oh, yeah, it was built this way. That's why that door closes.
Like,
instead of saying, oh, it's a haunting,
It didn't dawn on me, but you bringing that up, like, it makes perfect sense now, actually.
I'd like to read the book. It's a book by Shirley Jackson. I would really love to read the book.
I actually do have the audiobook. I just have not had a chance to listen to it yet.
Oh, man.
Yeah, because I was kind of like diving deep with those books because I got that one and I got the Hell House book because the Hell House and Legend of Hell House were just like so different with what they were able to show. But yeah, that's a movie I'll talk about on another day. But like, yeah, this one, like I want to read the book to see like if there's more explanation in it.
Gotta be.
Absolutely. If we were to look at the ending scene here, and she's, as we give spoilers in this section of our podcast, Eleanor's driving away. She's been sent away by herself. I don't know why they thought this woman was okay to drive by herself. But anyway, then we went and had the ending of the film. And she crashes, in the same tree area where the first wife crashed. And there's a line that Mark Way delivers, and he says, "The house has what it wants now. It will be satisfied for a little bit." Did anyone else think that was an odd thing to say? Or was it just me? To be like, okay, they have her soul. I know the house just wants her soul. Like, that's where I couldn't get where this guy stood. It was like he believed in science. He didn't believe in science.
Oh, by the end, he believed.
He believed. Okay.
That's the point. That's what I think, that everything Eleanor told him, he eventually goes like, you know what? I keep seeing proof positive. The proof is in the pudding here. This happens. You know what? This Eleanor, maybe we shouldn't be interfering. She is so dead set that she has to be here and that there's a reason and everything else and that she has to be at this house. I think it's almost like, that's why I think it kind of makes it a bit of a happy ending when it's supposed to be tragic.
Yeah. Yeah.
She got what she wanted. And I think
she had nowhere else to go, right? Too, as well, right?
And I think it also like he truly believed by the end because, for one, his wife, who was a skeptic, like she came off straight up being a skeptic about this from the beginning. Mm-hmm. She comes out and saying something happened, freaking out at the very end, like when she pops out from behind the tree and Eleanor crashes into the tree itself.
Yeah, like she's running like Bigfoot. Running the tree.
But you can see like something happened to her because she's like still freaked out. And then, that's when he even said there must have been something in that car with Eleanor that caused the crash because she didn't drive into that tree herself.
Mm-hmm. And so the concept that the house now has her and that it will be satisfied, kind of summing off that the house is in control.
Yeah.
And then her voice, sends us out, as Dave was saying, the narration of the closing of Eleanor basically saying the final monologue about the house was really well fitting.
Yeah. Like I love the beginning that monologue and the very end monologue with that narration, like that just kind of like a nice bookend for this film.
So as a paranormal investigation film, would we say that this is pretty decent, pretty accurate?
Yeah, I would say for the most part. Yeah, like at least with like the way they like you said, I wish they would have done more actual investigating and like just kind of rifling through the house a little more to try to solve this mystery instead of just kind of just staying there and seeing what happens. But yeah, for the most part, like it's this it's not like a bad representation of it.
Awesome. What do you think, Dave?
I think that it was kind of shoehorned in as a plot advancement device. We had to get her to this house. Mm-hmm. What's going to be the reason for it? And I think it's like, how do you get people to a haunted house? How do you get people together for what's going to lead to this? I mean, I'm okay with it when, like, even when you guys mentioned this to me as a paranormal investigator, I had to think about it. I said, wait a minute, how is the haunting that? And then I've only seen it one time. Then I started watching it and it comes clear early in the movie when the guy makes a visit to the old lady's house, the last descendant's relative and all that. I'm like, okay, so they're going here for the research. But it seems like he does do a lot of talking, the doctor, and they do talk. It's almost like they're theorizing. Mm-hmm. But as far as a representation of a paranormal investigator, I would say it's kind of shoehorned in. I mean, shoehorned sounds bad, but I mean, it's a plot device to get specifically Eleanor to the house and to get other people there. I don't know if it's a strong representation in that aspect, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think you got some valid points there. I think it's a strong representation of what real hauntings look like. Especially like with noises and, you know, and even if I heard like a little kid cackling and laughing, I'd be getting the fuck out of there. I would not be sticking around for any of this shit. I'd be terrified.
And you know me, I'm a sucker for going to abandoned houses and probably going to get myself killed one of these days. But if I ever walked into an abandoned house and then I heard just creepy little children laughing or weird shit like that happening, I would be getting the fuck out of Dodge.
Right? So I think it's very accurate to hauntings, but I think for paranormal investigation, I agree. I think they slapped that on there, shoehorned it in just as an advocate to get Eleanor to the house, and we could see Eleanor's relationship with the house. I agree, Dave. But yeah, so overall, if it's a good movie for 1963, it's an interesting watch. But let's move on to our next one, and this was Dave's pick. So Scott, bring us in.
All right. So the next movie we are going to jump into is Poltergeist, which was released on June 4th, 1982. A dream home becomes the house from hell as evil spirits rise up to possess the soul of an innocent child. And this was directed by Tobe Hooper, who also had Steven Spielberg behind the helm more as producer. Of course, there's a lot of debate on that, but that's not what we're here for.
We're just going from what IMDb said.
And is it Tobe Hooper or Tobe Hooper? There you go, Dave Z. I had to do that just for you.
Awesome. Good old Tobe.
But yeah, since you are the one that brought this movie for our topic today, why don't you go ahead and give your thoughts, Dave?
Well, this was very easy for me to choose. When you guys said choose a movie with paranormal investigators, it was one of those things that was just no thought whatsoever. It's like the equivalent of someone saying, give me a movie about a shark. I'm going to say Jaws. You know, it's just, it is what it is. This movie is a personal favorite of mine. It's depending on the day of the week, it's in my top 10. So it's one of my favorites. I've been watching it at least once a year since I was a kid. It's a family favorite. My wife happens to adore it as well, so that helps. We watch it a lot. It's something that it's nostalgia. It's me living in the 80s and experiencing what happens because of when this movie is filmed and being a kid at that time. And casting that aside, it holds up. To me, it's that damn good of a movie. I think it's a masterpiece. I think as far as what you're talking about with paranormal researchers coming in, you get it in so many different ways. You get the first group that comes in with the two guys that are just technical, and then the woman who runs it and what they do. And then, you know, one of them checks out because he gets bugged out, rightfully so. And then we get Tangina, the psychic one, coming in at the end, and she's a different type of paranormal investigator who uses no tools at all, who strictly uses her feels, comes in and she feels. She has a touching, she could touch the outside world in a matter of speaking. And I don't think that nobody can convince me that there's anything wrong with this movie. I don't say that about too many movies, but it's almost magical from filmmaking perspective, the soundtrack, the acting, the stuff we see. The fact that it's only PG is kind of insane when you see some of the stuff that happens. And then as an adult, it's scarier for a different reason. After having a child and seeing that, that's what makes it even nowadays. I appreciate it. I think even more. I didn't even know if that was possible. But seeing a family who can't leave, you can't leave. People can say anything they want. You're in a house and they take your little girl, and you know that little girl is in that house somewhere. There's no way you're not leaving. You're not going to leave that house until you leave with your child, this poor little baby. You know what I mean? And it's just the things that happen throughout from the opening to the closing of this film. I just think that as far as this type of haunted house type of movie goes, I don't think you could top it. I just think it's an incredible film.
I am right there with you because, like this is one that I grew up watching as a little kid, scared the shit out of me back then. Now I come back to it and watch it with more of a clinical eye. And yeah, you are right with this is one of those when paranormal investigations get brought up for films. This is one that you have to go to. They bring in, like you said, the technical team that end up being way over their head with something that they can't even comprehend on how to deal with. So they call in the expert. And even she starts to struggle because of just how powerful these entities are, because there's so many of them. And like, I also wanted to bring up too that I think this might be one of the first horror films to kind of bring in the whole white noise aspect of like the paranormal too, with the whole static screens and all that stuff. And like, yeah, this is like, and it's like this one is like a true where it's like they're investigating, trying to figure out how to like close this down. There is no skepticism with this one. Like they're like, they show like right up from the beginning, like, all right, can you explain why this chair is all of a sudden just sliding across the kitchen floor? And like it's straight up like, yeah, there is no like skepticism. They are trying to investigate on figuring out how to cleanse this house of these spirits, which I find a very straightforward task, and I don't think it would have been done any better if it wasn't by Steven Spielberg and Tobe Hooper, the way they directed and worked on this film together. And Heather, how about you?
So I echo similar sentiments. I don't think anyone could walk into this movie and say it's not a well-made film. And if we look at it from a paranormal investigation side, I think it's really well done for a couple of different reasons. I think there's some really good comedy that's included in here that's not really like, it's not necessarily laugh out loud funny, but it gave me a chuckle. Like there's one part where Dr. Marshall Leith is sitting there with her two technicians having a conversation, and she says something like ghosts, and something slides across the table, and she's like, demons, like because it's mad that it got called a ghost. And then the scene where they're explaining to her, the parents are explaining to Marcia what's happened, and her hands are shaking as she's having the tea poured. And then where Steven's boss comes to visit him and the piano slides as Steven's trying to get him out of the house. I thought that those were really clever and just really good signs of an entity occurring. And I agree 100% with Dave. I think as much as I'm like, oh yeah, I would leave at the first sign of trouble, if my daughter, who I could hear, was somewhere in that house, I'm not fucking going anywhere until I get her back. So
I'm doing everything in my power.
Right. So that all to me is good writing, because you're including these really creepy things that are happening, but that core reason of the child is missing, but yet, it's not like the child's missing and there's no hint that the child is there. You're able to talk to the child through various means, whether electronically through the TV or whatnot, electronic waves. And you can hear her, and you can hear her fear for whatever is chasing her. And that was all really well done. And the paranormal investigators' reaction of the one leaving, the one choosing to stay, the dialogue between the husband, the wife, and I can't remember who the main investigator is, the woman that comes in at the end.
Tangina.
Is excellent. It's excellent. That whole delivery is excellent. Like the part where she's like, who is tougher on Carol Ann? Well, and the parents are like, oh, and the dad's like, I've never spanked her. He's like, I don't give a shit if you spanked her or not. You just need to tell her right now to do something so she'll listen. That is some awesome delivery. And I think it just speaks to the fact that this was written well, and it included reasons for them doing what they were doing. So that's another thing about this film too, is like you feel for this family, because this family is just so wholesome, and like just it is a they're real too.
Like you
they're real.
Feel like
so
this is like a real family. Like I mean, like you even see like the alone time with the parents, like in their bedroom, and you see the mother just like smoking a joint and the husband just chilling, and they're just laughing and having a good time by themselves when the kids are in bed. Like you just like you feel that this is like a true legitimate family. Like, and like you feel for what ends up happening to their poor daughter, and then of course the trauma that happens to their freaking poor son, who gets grabbed by a freaking monster tree and then tormented by a clown.
And it ties back into the pool and even the equipment that they bring to kind of do the investigations with, and how her room kind of becomes a no-go zone. It was just really, it was really well done. And then when they cross over, or even creating that kind of, I guess you could say, portal or gateway, and throwing the tennis balls through to see if they come through, and coming out with that slime. And of course, if we, retrace back to the reason why the paranormal events are occurring and where the house was built on, it makes a lot of sense. Like everything is like check, 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 check. And I think that's why this movie really stands out and stood out for Dave so much as a great example of paranormal investigators going to a haunted house that's actually good.
Yeah, and also, like, I love the fact, this movie is just titled Poltergeist, and that is exactly what these entities are, because poltergeists are the ones that are are picking up and moving objects and throwing them across the room. Like that is like a legit thing. And so like I thought that was a very fitting for the title that they used this for this movie, and that's the type of ghost it was. It wasn't just, oh, we're just like ghosts closing doors or slowly opening them or just like something out of the corner of your eye. Nope. These things are just throwing shit around, and like you're sitting there going, yeah, there is no explanation for this except for this place is fucking haunted.
Like, no, they're poltergeists, not ghosts. They get very upset when you call them ghosts.
But now, you know what I mean, though.
Right, I know. I'm just being playful. So it's interesting because the first time I saw this movie, it ends and I'm like, how we got 25 minutes left of this film still? I thought they solved the fucking problem, right? And then you realize they did not solve the problem. So I want to ask you two one question about that. Does that mean that the paranormal investigators and the medium failed? Or does that just mean the poltergeist was too powerful? So we'll let Dave go.
Well, I guess you could say either or, because she comes down and it's like, this house is clean. You know, you get that whole thing. Like, okay, house is clean. Thanks. We're wrapping up. Let's go. And then not so. So is Tangina a failure in what she's doing? Or are the poltergeists just that strong? I think at the end of the day, it's both. I think when you're dealing with something otherworldly or something that it actually, the sad part is, it is our world. They're in the same world we're in. Mm-hmm. They haven't passed over and they're still here. And that scene, there are scenes in this movie which are so emotional. And that scene when they videotape them coming down the stairs and they watch back and you can see they're actually human beings walking with white things around them. And there's that one that comes out at the end and the one woman's looking at them, the first investigator, she's like, they're so alone. They're so lonely. And she's like almost on the brink of tears, feeling bad for these people. And there's just so much heart. And ultimately, nobody knows for real. I mean, Tangina, obviously, she has a strong connection. We see how powerful she is because even that one scene, and it's a little comedy too, when she asks a question and then Craig T. Nelson tries to answer with her mind and she doesn't. He goes, see, she said she was the best. I'm trying to answer her with her mind. And she's like, oh, I am. She goes, I just don't like tricky answers. You know, like, he's powerful, man. So if someone of that power still can't do it, I just think it's a bit of both. It's just when you're dealing with the unknown, all bets are off, I guess.
Yeah, like I think I am going to go with the route that, she did not fail. I think that this was just a situation that was too powerful for her, because I bet you like she would be able to shut these poltergeists down if it was just one poltergeist. But this is hundreds of poltergeists on top of a burial site. And I think the power there is just way too much. So I don't think she failed because she knows what she's doing. And she's done this plenty of times from what you can tell from this movie. And so I think it's just the power of the people there and the entities there that are causing all of this are just too much for her.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. And I think a lot of that backs back to being a house being built on a burial ground.
Yes.
Because that's their home now. And now we've, the family has invaded their space. So you may push back the spirits, but you'll never get rid of all the spirits. And paranormal investigators do talk about how angry spirits or spirits that are resentful that they're dead will continuously come back for vengeance, not go to the light because they're angry and they don't want to leave. And I think that's what the beast was supposed to represent.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought that was interesting when I first saw this movie, though, because I remember when I was like, so what's going on? Like, are we going to watch them pack for 25 minutes? Like, I don't understand the purpose of this. And then I got it. And I think the special effects still hold up today. I think the father freaking out at his boss, being like, you didn't move the cemetery, and the house basically, imploding in on itself. And then when they go to the hotel, I do enjoy the little, pushing out the TV of the hotel room.
Yeah.
I did think that was pretty funny. And there was some other good writing, something really subtle that happened. So when you think everything's fine and the teenage girl says to her mom, I just want to go to a friend's house for dinner. The mom says, that's fine. We're going to be staying at the Holiday Inn tonight. She's like, oh, the Holiday Inn on whatever highway. She's like, yeah. She's like, oh, I remember that. She's like, what? Nothing. It's like, obviously she went there, right? With a boyfriend or some other reason. I thought that was really funny. And that's good writing. Like that is good writing when you can hear those things and be like very real, very connected. It makes you feel like these are people that you're getting attached to. Yeah, I think this was a great example of paranormal investigators going to a haunted house. And I guess you guys agree.
Yes, completely 100% agree on this one. This was
For
an
sure.
excellent. Thank you very much, Dave, for bringing this one to the discussion.
Of course, I just absolutely love it. I could go on and on about this movie and the heart and the family and how you care about it and how it makes me tearful almost sometimes, some of the scenes, because you care about the family, something you don't see anymore. You care about every member of this family, what they're going to. And there's just that one scene, like you said, about the beast, when she's explaining the beast and she goes, to us, to her, it simply is another child, but to us, it is the beast. I'm like, oh my God. And then when she yells and she's like, bastard, she's just a baby. And you hear the girl crying. Oh, dude, it's very emotional. I don't know how many movies get that kind of emotion out of me. You know what I mean? It's just, God, man.
Well, and it's the writing. We can go back to the writing and the delivery by the actors and actresses and the direction. Like that's what happens when that all comes together like a perfect storm.
Yeah,
and the
exactly.
delivery is what you want to see. So we're going to jump 20 years later and we're going to move to our next film.
All right. So the next film is Noroi the Curse, which was initially released August 20th of 2005, directed by Koji Shirashi. A prominent paranormal journalist named Kobayashi goes missing shortly after completing a documentary. What begins as an investigation into strange noises soon evolves into the chilling mystery of a demonic entity named Kakatuba. Or I may have pronounced that wrong, but
you did pretty good, Scotty.
All right. But yeah, this is I would say this is probably like the more down to earth real look at like a paranormal investigation, and it actually felt almost like the paranormal investigation shows that, you know, take themselves seriously and are not like going, oh my God, who's there? Did you see that? Oh my God. Not those dumb reality TV show types, but like almost like this is a documentary, like a faux documentary. And I've seen like documentaries with paranormal investigations and stuff like that. And that's what this felt like to me. Like, so yeah, we'll just do what we've been doing. And Dave, what are your thoughts?
I've always been a fan of this movie. It's for the longest time, you couldn't see it. It wasn't readily available, but it's one of the movies that I put on my my found footage challenge list back in the early days of Exploding Heads, and couldn't see it for a while. I was always a fan. This is probably the third or fourth time I've watched it, and it's another one that's long, but actually it doesn't. You don't feel the time with it like you might some other movies. It's so cool because it's your things are coming from so many different areas. It's like you see the story of him, and then there's like so many pieces to the puzzle that have to come together. You get the crazy guy not the crazy guy, but the super psychic as they introduce him, yes. with all the stuff on him.
Literally the tinfoil hat guy.
The tinfoil hat guy, totally. It's so funny. You get him, and then you get the girl who was on that show who experienced the what she experienced when she was out with those other two guys, and it was on camera, but they didn't put the whole thing on the show. And then the young girl that, was able to, the psychic girl in the classroom when they were doing that stuff. So you have all these little, and then of course, the story about what happened with the strange neighbor lady who was acting a fool. Anybody tried to come to her house and everything, just the way it began. There's so many pieces to this puzzle. And it's like, if you don't pay attention to the whole thing, you could get lost because it's just, you really have to concentrate on this movie, but it's worth it. It's worth it to concentrate on the movie, and it's worth it to give it your undivided attention because it all does fall into place. And it's typical as far as like an Asian horror movie in many ways when you get to the third act, when you see the what's and the whys of what's going on here. In the beginning, it's, a lot of everything, but it's so well done. And I just think it's been given a second life now because it's Shudder has picked it up. And for, like I said, for a while, you couldn't see it. It would come up on YouTube and then it would be taken down. But it's a really good movie. You just have to keep your eyes on the screen, but it's worth it to do so.
Yes, I completely agree. How about you, Heather?
I'm going to let you go first, Scott.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, this is, like we were saying, like we wanted to try doing as many of the first-time watches for this topic when it was our picks. And I have heard a lot about Noroi the Curse, and so I was like, all right, I'm going to pick this one because I'm very curious about this. I've been hearing a lot of things about this film, and it fits in the paranormal investigation. This one, there was a lot of ups and downs with this. Like you said, Dave, like you have to pay attention to this story because like there are just so many areas this goes in. It goes in so many threads. And then it just, as the story goes on, it's tying those threads back together. Like when it comes to the end, like everything makes sense on why they decided to go this route and cover this part of the topic. And I love that this is actually a true investigation. Like this guy is like literally going to neighbors that are talking about the story and like interviewing them, just trying to figure out what this is. And then going on to the next person and then, oh, hearing about this little bit of info. Okay, so I'm going to go investigate this now. And like, and then he's showing like the different TV shows and like hearing about like the stuff that happens there. So he's going to investigate those actors and actresses and like the student that had the like the psychic powers. Like it all just like is a true paranormal investigation. Like I said, this feels like it feels like a real documentary. And like the way this was all portrayed was very well done. Cause like at first I'm going, all right, this movie's starting to lose me. And all of a sudden like something will happen and that'll pull me right back in. And I'm going, oh shit. Okay. All right. This is starting to like make more sense. And there's another new clue added to it. And then it'll, go on this investigation route again. Like I love how this film is represented in this way. Like it does such a phenomenal job of like just kind of covering it and like making it feel like this has really happened.
Yeah, I think that both of you did a really good job of outlining that this gives a really true perspective of what paranormal investigation looks like. I think out of all the movies that we've watched, this is probably the most gritty in that sense. You really do feel like you're watching this dude go through this journey of investigating these various occurrences. I enjoyed the psychic TV show. Clips of that because I thought that was another thing that's very popular, and
yes,
to do that whole like, oh, what's going to happen, and I think it showed one side of it. I really enjoyed the latter half of the movie, particular when the possessions seem to take very realistic looks, like when they canoe out to the middle of nowhere and she's trying to rid herself of the spirit. I thought that was a very realistic scene to what you would see happening. But it is very long, and I did feel like it was a very much a roller coaster for me. There were parts where I was really engaged, and there were parts where I was like, okay, this is obviously a bridge, and I need to make sure I'm paying attention here to get to the next scene. So I would caution anyone watching this to really make sure you have your full attention. This isn't like something like Grave Encounters, where it's filmed from a found footage perspective, but it's a pretty easy film to follow. Yeah, maybe if you're doing something else, you may miss a couple of jump scares or something like that, but the plot is pretty easy to get of what they're doing. It's not out there. The reasoning for the hauntings aren't out there. This is one where you really need to follow along because there's so many characters that are interconnected with each other, which is something that's very common for Asian horror films, as Dave was saying earlier. They tend to be a little bit more complex. They tend to be more focused on character development. But I really did feel like this presented a true paranormal investigation. And the ending was quite sad. You felt really bad for what was happening at the end. And especially to that little boy. Like I definitely will owe this a couple of watches to get it. I can see why Dave, recommends it. And probably after watching it 3 times, Dave, I feel like you have a better grip on it than you did the first time you watched it.
For sure. Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is one because I started it a couple days ago. It took me about 2 days to get through because I was starting to watch it, and then I noticed after about a half hour, 40 minutes, my mind was just getting distracted by the outside world. Not because of the movie, but just because things were happening around the outside world. I'm going, all right, I'm not in the right headspace to focus on this right now. I'm gonna stop this now and start it back up from this spot the next day. And that's what I did. And I made sure I was just in focus completely on it, and I'm glad I did because. Yeah, I'm easily just sidetracked and distracted when I watch movies. So I'm glad that I was able to give this the full attention because there is a lot that I would have been completely and utterly lost on if I did not do that. And
did we think the message here, and this was just something I got, was don't be pursuing paranormal shit that you shouldn't be pursuing? Did you guys get that message of some things you should just leave be and stop digging?
Yes, I think once he got to a certain point and realized we're putting the pieces together, I think that's when when all the pieces came together, I think that's when he should have stopped. But he kept going. And that's where I think he made the mistake because it came back with him and pretty much fucked him and his whole family up.
Yeah. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I didn't think of it until you brought it up. That thought never occurred to me, but I guess a lot of the events would not have happened because what's the worst that would happen? The one girl got spooked when she was on that show, and the other girl did what she did. But then the further along everything was pushed, and that little girl, what's her name? I should know what the guy says it 100 times. He's always crying about it.
Yeah,
you know,
Kyra, start with a K, I think.
Hold on, I have it written down here. But I mean, like she even says at one point, she goes, "Well, I guess it's too late for all of us." And this is this young girl; she's like 8 or something. You know what I mean? And like they're asking questions, and that's her response at one point. She goes, "Well, I guess it's too late for all of us." And it was before she went missing, and before all the shit hits the fan in every other way. So it's like, yeah, I guess if he wouldn't have been, diving so deep into it and just would have let things be the way they were, then you're right. A lot of this stuff doesn't happen. That's a good point, Heather. It didn't even, it didn't even occur to me that if he just would have chilled, nothing would have happened. What's the worst thing that happened, honestly? Because the one family complained because they heard crying baby noises at the neighbor house. That was the worst. And then they go to the one girl's house and she heard knocking on the freaking at her house. If they could have just left it at that, or those people could have moved or whatever, yeah. And that guy was warning, he said, stay away from pigeons and all that other stuff, and ectoplasmic worms, that solves it all up. They're there. It's almost like I said with Poltergeist. They're in this realm. They're in this world. We just can't see them. So by doing things to, to try and see them, you're asking for trouble. Just let them be. You know what I mean? Just if they're out there floating around, best not provoke them. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're bringing attention to them when they don't want to be attention brought on them. And
you can argue that's what paranormal investigators do.
Yeah.
Any show you watch with them, it's them pushing things, whether they're real, fake, whatever. They're constantly pursuing it. Like the spirit could be like, fuck off, or I'm going to murder you. And they'd be like, what was that, spirit? Are you trying to communicate something to us? Why? Are you angry? And they would still keep pushing. And I just think that this movie did a really good job of exploring of this is what happens.
Yep, because it's showing showing
yes.
natural human curiosity on something we don't understand and wanting to learn more about it. Where sometimes our curiosity, just like curiosity killed the cat, curiosity will get the better of you if you continue to push.
This is true. Well, we have one last movie to talk about, and this is a more recent film. So let Scotty lead us in with that one.
All right. So our final film for our topic today is Terrified, or also known as Aberrados.
Oh, aren't you fancy, huh?
It was released on May 3rd of 2018, and it is directed by Demian Rugna. Paranormal researchers investigate strange events in a neighborhood in Buenos Aires. This is a true first-time watch for me because I started I started it when the year it came out, but I was not in the right headspace. I was really sick, so I turned it off. So I'm glad I came back to this, but this is probably one of the more terrifying films that we watched for this topic for me. Like this one just had like some very unsettling images, and I liked that this one brought in a paranormal researcher, like a kind of like a doctor/scientist, and also had the cop that was just involved with all this stuff. I just kind of like that this was like a ragtag team trying to figure out what is happening in this town. And yeah, like always, I will pass it on to Dave first and let him talk about his thoughts.
Well, I quite enjoy this movie. This was in my top 10 the year it came out. I've always been a major supporter of this one. We talked about it on Watsy an episode or two ago, and it was one that I'm not sure who brought it to the table, but either way, I purchased the Blu-ray when I didn't even have to, because you can watch it anytime on Shudder. So that just goes to show you how much I like it. I had to own it. And what you said about creepy images, holy cow! I mean, freaking two in particular, the beginning, the scene in the tub, and especially later on, that little boy, that corpse sitting at that table. What a scene! That, oh my gosh, it's just, it's definitely creepy. There are some visuals in this movie that are just out of this world, freaking like scary stuff happening, just out of the ordinary. Visuals that you're not going to forget. I love the setup of it. I like how it's kind of basically, it's almost like one apartment complex, if you will, and it's almost like an anthology. It's like 3 different events happening, and the way they unfold, and it's told in a, an unusual sort of way. But man, as far as the investigators, it's interesting where they go with it. It's interesting when they come in, and it's more straightforward. It's what you would expect someone to be if they were to come in your house. It wasn't goofy at all. It was like, okay,
No.
you know what I mean? You know how a lot of times you see it, and it's a lot of times they're almost like caricatures of what you would expect a paranormal investigator to be.
Oh yeah, this is a lot more realistic. Yeah,
right, and that's what I like about it. And I think it's a really solid film, and I think that it's kind of slept on in for a lot of us modern horror fans. I don't know. I don't hear too many people talking about it, but I think it's a great film.
Yeah, and it's a shame that this one, because this one needs to be talked about more. Because I'm kind of kicking myself for not watching it back in 2018 when this was released, or at least trying to rewatch it once I was feeling better, but I just never got around to it. But yeah, this film for me, I like that there was in this team of investigators is just a detective or a cop that's just kind of there along for the ride just because he knows the people in this town, and he's just wanting to help them and try to figure out what is going on. And he's not believing what he's seeing, and the poor guy, just the shit he goes through, and the fact that he's the one that ends up surviving out of the team is kind of crazy. Well, possibly surviving is not at the end of the team, because he just kind of disappears at the end. But the investigators almost become obsessed to the point where they're like we were talking with Noroi the Cursed, they kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and one was almost just almost worshiping what these things were doing, it seemed like, because he was just enjoying figuring out, if you look at it at this angle, you see there's the thing right there, and but he was just loving it. He was enjoying it more than he should. I think he should have been more freaked out, but he wasn't. And I think that kind of caused the demise for him. And the other one almost just felt careless in a way, because she wasn't giving her full attention to things when they were around her. And it's interesting how these characters each had a different style portrayed with them. What do you think, Heather?
I think that these characters were not prepared for the shit show they were going to walk into.
Yeah, right?
I think they had the reason what we're perceiving as relaxed or over superstitious or over curiosity comes from they had never dealt with something this dark. Because I almost pee-peed my pants watching this movie.
Nice.
It was fucking scary.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to see that. Now already I have an issue with paranormal stuff. I don't, I believe in ghosts and other shit. So something of this topic is already very emotional for me, let alone something that's this well delivered. The little boy's corpse sitting at the table. Let's just think of that as a mother coming into your kitchen and your son has been tragically killed in an accident, which all that stuff was connected together. Walter was the beginning of it, but everything was connected together in this neighborhood. And you see him sitting there with a glass of milk, and then the milk spills and they put him in the freezer. They move the body out there and the freezer starts making noises. I think these paranormal researchers had been around the block and we're just it's going to be anything else that's out of the regular, and it was not.
Yeah, they were almost too lax.
And I don't blame them. I don't think they were prepared for the evil that they were going to walk into.
Yes.
And the one scene that really stood out to me and startled me was when the woman, there's that very calm dialogue between herself and the police detective, the main female paranormal investigator. He's walking around the house having a conversation with her, basically talking about leaving. And all of a sudden the entity reaches through the wall and twists her neck.
Yeah, just out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. And I think that's what you call an appropriate jump scare. And Spanish films that come from Argentina can do those very well. And this whole creepiness of building up to it, and there it is. It's not like in North American films where you have the music and it's building up and you know something creepy is going to happen. It just comes from nowhere. And I thought it was really good in illustrating how things can go horribly wrong during a paranormal investigation.
Yeah, and that scene alone proved what I was saying, she was just too lax and not giving it the attention she should have for something that was as dangerous as it was.
Yeah, but I don't agree with that statement, because I don't think she realized. I think that this spirit was nothing that they had ever seen before.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, something attention that you don't know is going to be that,
Yeah, she just didn't realize that the power of this thing.
Mm-hmm. I get you. What any thoughts you want to add, Dave? I know we're talking a lot about some certain things. Is there anything that really stuck out to you as creepy in this one?
No, I mean, I just like all the scary stuff. Like I said, the corpse in the beginning and the voices in the sink and the whole thing that I don't know if you guys listen to when we talk about it, but Watson brought something up about the water and it being a major thing. There's water in the pipes, there's water in the shower, water to take the pill. There is something in the narrative about water and something being transferred through it in this particular area. And what is it? We don't know. It's not explained, but it's definitely something to take note of. And I would love for someone to watch it and be able to say, okay, I see what you guys are saying, and I think, to give examples, because it's not straightforward, but I'm glad he picked up on it. It's really actually interesting.
Because now that you bring that up, there's it's almost like a sign of something bad about to happen right after water is used. Because
that little boy drinks it and then gets hit.
The little boy drinks it right from that water fountain out there, then gets hit by the car. The Walter's wife, I think it was Walter, the guy in the very beginning, she's has the
Oh no, Walter was the neighbor.
Oh, okay, he was the neighbor.
Yeah.
But the other guy with his wife, she had the water running in the sink and she kept hearing noises in there, and then something bad happened to her right after that.
That the girl's husband, who becomes reliable narrator, who everyone thinks is the unreliable narrator. He's the one that survived it, that quote unquote mentally unstable afterwards, but actually knows what's going on. And the water thing is very fascinating. And obviously the water would connect all the neighborhood houses because that's something that would travel. But I'm wondering if this is more a cultural thing about Buenos Aires, if there was an issues with a water system at one point, and this is now building off that, because there could be some cultural references to that, right?
Yep, exactly.
We've had movies about water being tainted, look at The Crazies. That's about water and issues with water systems and chemicals and all that other kind of stuff. So maybe there's something in Argentina that would reflect this that we wouldn't get in North America. We would just see that as oh, this is a coincidence and this is a theme, but why? So that's a really interesting point. Really, really interesting point. And I guess the only thing I wanted to tie in at the end is we get 3 new paranormal investigators that show up.
Yep.
With the dude who's all right, round 2. And who did we think it was interesting that he could see one of the old paranormal investigators, and what does that mean? Why would that paranormal investigator be back?
That is a good question. Because why would he be back, especially there? I could see him being back in Buenos Aires at the houses, being there, his spirit being trapped there. But being back at the facility where they're talking to him in investigation again and interviewing him, I don't know if that's something that could be just chalked up as, horror movie thing at the end, just to kind of give you that last final jump scare, or if there's more to it than that.
It could be he wanted to solve the case, or maybe he's evil now and the demon has possessed him in his spirit and he's able to travel. What do you think, Dave?
Well, aren't they talking to the same guy that at one time he was also on the other side of the table at the same place when this happens?
Yeah, so they're talking. The guy that the survivor, the one lone survivor,
right,
is now meeting with 3 new paranormal investigators, and they're asking him questions about the previous paranormal investigators.
Right.
And he points and he says, "Is that guy with you?" And they turn around and no one's there. And he says that it's the doctor or one of the paranormal investigators from before. And then the chair gets ended up throwing across the room. So we're wondering to why he came, that other paranormal investigator came back, or was him. If it wasn't, maybe it was something else.
No, it's him. My belief is that it's him, and he's appearing to just the one guy, obviously, who he dealt with him before, and he knows who he is. He knows what went down. I think he's there to basically give a warning to the guy, saying, "Okay, you've seen what's happened. Don't let these 3 people sitting in front of you end up like me."
Nice.
Yes, actually, that's a very good point.
Like a reminder or something, Here I am. Keep your mouth shut this time.
Remember what happened to me.
Yeah, back to what you were saying earlier, Heather, and what we've been saying the last couple of movies, that if you push it, this is what happens. He's basically saying, "Okay, don't push it this time, homie. Just chill. We know it. We know it's evil. How about you get out of that freaking area and let evil
evacuate everybody else out of there too."
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
I think that's a really good point, Dave. And I think this is a really good example of what happens when paranormal investigation goes wrong, similar to Nori, and how dark it can get. And I agree, Dave. Just one of the other jump scenes that I really liked was when he's looking across the street and he's talking to the police officer, the one paranormal investigator. He's like, but I see you in the living room. He's like, I'm not in the living room. That's not me. And we know it's the image. Oh my God.
Man.
Like so well filmed, so well done. I hope I've heard that there might be a sequel one day. Sign me up. Like, I would love to see a sequel to this, no matter how they do it. If it's a whole new area or if it's continuing on this story, I think the film is just made with such high quality. The acting, the dialogue, even when it's in a different language, you can still read people's emotions and expressions and understand what they're communicating. And I just think that these 4 films were great examples of paranormal investigators going to a haunted house that didn't make me want to poke my eyes out. Like, it was much better done than a lot of other films we've seen out there. So anything,
you know what it is, right? You know what it is. You know what all these movies that you're talking about paranormal investigators
going to a haunted house.
You know what all this is. You know how all this started, right? This is all because of Paranormal Activity, which
absolutely
I happen to love the franchise. But when that movie came around and everybody saw how cheap it was to invest a couple G's and freaking make a couple M's, let's go in and let's do our thing. All of a sudden, direct to video, Paranormal Entity, Paranormal this, Amityville Paranormal, and then A Grave Encounters comes along and does a good job. But I mean, it's just so easy to make. But you didn't see movies like this in even the early 2000s that much. This is a sign of our times. Paranormal Activity came on, and I say it all the time. I give that movie a lot of props because the stuff that's come after, granted, a lot of it hasn't been good, but everyone has tried to imitate it. And now we get these generic paranormal investigator movies showing up to an asylum or showing up to this place or a house. And it's just become so blasé, so freaking just, but these are quality flicks.
Yes.
That's the difference. Talk about any movie like Paranormal Investigators now. It's just, I mean, granted, some of these are recent, like Terrified and stuff. Don't get me wrong, but these, especially the found footage types, and I hate to knock it because, I love it. But that's what's happened. It's become like a trope. It's just become a trend of these type of movies. And it's really unfortunate, but I mean, it's like anything. Something good comes along and everybody bites it. What are you gonna do?
Yep. Because I was gonna say, because that is why I really dig the types of movies that spoof these types of characters now. Because I almost brought up on this for this topic, but Heather was like, no, let's go with first time watches was Ghost Killers versus Bloody Mary, because they're spoofing that whole paranormal investigators going somewhere they don't believe something's happening and getting their comeuppance just done.
Well, and it's more making fun of it, where these ones were more serious.
Exactly.
Right? So I guess for our final segment, which is Out of the Dark, it's just our opinion based on whether we think paranormal investigation shows are legit or if we think they're full of shit, or in general in the paranormal investigator realm that seems to become quite popular with over 3,000 different paranormal investigator teams registered in the United States. So I don't know who wants to start off the conversation, who has a strong opinion on it.
Well, you are like Heather, my thoughts already on these two specifically, Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yeah.
I'm of the sort that, I do believe that there are ghosts out there and that some of these people, like paranormal investigators in general, I feel like the general mass of them are bullshitters. But I believe there are a few that are out there that actually do good work, and actually are legit. I dislike Ed and Lorraine Warren because they seem to take advantage of a lot of people that had probably undiagnosed mental conditions and were not actually dealing with true hauntings. And they kind of perpetrated that and exploited that from what I have read and discovered. But at the same time, they were people that I think were unwillingly exploiting them. I don't think they were doing it on purpose. I think they truly believed in what they were doing, and I believe they have had some experiences where that stuff was legit, where they dealt with a lot of paranormal things. But at the same time, I think their popularity as paranormal investigators got them too far, and they started doing things and just claiming it as paranormal. I mean, because I think they were also one of the ones to say that the Amityville horror was a legit paranormal incident when it wasn't. And so like situations like that where I think like, yeah, like there can be these paranormal investigators that like are legit doing this and like they believe and are, you know, not doing this for money, but doing this to help and are actually like legit people. Then you have Ghost Adventures, fucking Zach Baggins and his type of bullshit, where it's the reality TV show Paranormal Investigators, and I don't believe a single one of them. I think they do this all for the glory and popularity and the name recognition and the fame. So it's like a double-edged sword when it comes to paranormal investigators. I believe certain ones and I don't believe others, because when it becomes like a reality TV show, I'm not buying into your bullshit.
Snap, snap, snap. Scott doesn't buy into your shit. Yeah, I don't know. Dave, do you have some thoughts?
Well, you know, as far as like the early ones, like the Warrens are concerned, I kind of have mixed feelings about them based on different things that I've read. And obviously they're the most popular ones, but I guess that's the best I can say. And I'm not going to sit here because I've read good things and I've read bad things. And I've read recently something that their daughter was saying. We talked about it.
Yeah, I remember you talked about it on your last show. Yeah.
It kind of hit home with me, and it made me like appreciate Lorraine Warren. I don't think this girl has any reason to bullshit, because she said, I want no part of it. It's a little bit scary for me. I stay away. She's not trying to make a profit off it. She could, you know, easily this woman could take her parents' legacy and turn that into something, and she hasn't.
Yeah.
So because of that, it makes me more prone to believe what she's saying. And she wasn't saying anything outlandish. She was just saying that after, when my father was older and sick, my mother would be on the phone till 3, 4 in the morning sometimes with people, ex-clients, not even making money off them, just talking them off a cliff and saying this and this. So she really believed it. So yeah. I think there's contradictory things, not contradictory, but there's different sides to it, I guess.
Yeah.
With the
well, you're always going to be heroes to some, villains to the other, depending on what your interaction is, right?
Yep.
So
that's why I'm very torn with them, because like I was like, I used to just have like such dislike for them, but then like hearing the other things about them, it's like, I believe like they believe they are doing what is best. And sometimes it works and sometimes it unfortunately does not, and like they get labeled another.
Yeah, I don't know enough about them. I have nothing to add. I know the movies, which I'm assuming aren't accurate representations of who they are.
Sugar coated,
right? So, you know, I have no skin in the game in that area. I just find that they've, you know, their explantation of what we see with the Conjuring movies and stuff like that. I think those are fun. And I do believe in poltergeists and I do believe in ghosts, and I don't like to fuck with that shit. So I probably would have called the Warrens if I ran into something back in the day. Probably would have, right? Do you have any thoughts, Dave, on Paranormal Investigators, current ones, like the ones that have TV shows and stuff?
Okay, I have not watched any of them. And again, I'm going to say that the movie Paranormal Activity has a lot to do with that. They came out and that movie came out and it became part of like, you know, pop culture in a way. Everybody knew about it, it was being spoofed and everything else. So it seems like, again, I could be 100% wrong because I don't watch that stuff. So it seems to me that stuff started getting popular shortly after Paranormal Activity came around. It's never interested me. I have no interest in reality TV, period. So it definitely wasn't something that I was going to watch. And I guess if anything would have been really cool, I would have heard about it through the grapevine. So what I see on Grave Encounters and some other movies that I've watched, I'm guessing is almost like a perfect or a very close representation as to what those shows really are.
Yeah, they really are very close.
Right.
To that.
That's kind of enough for me. I don't have an interest in it. And I'm not going to sit here on my high horse and say everybody's full of shit, because it's not for me to say. But my opinion is that, kind of like with psychics, I do believe in spirituality and things, and I've seen things. But I also am not ignorant to the fact that everybody wants to make a buck. And believe me, if somebody would have come to me and said, here, let's go and pretend to hunt for ghosts, and we're going to make freaking 6 figures a year. Number one, I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not going to lead anybody. It isn't like there are some instances where you will, you know, pretend to be something, and you'll sit down with someone who's lost a loved one and you're going to give them false hope. I couldn't exploit people
like the Ouija origins, like what they were doing in that. Yeah. Remember that movie? Right. Yeah.
Correct. But she justified it because she said, well, I'm making them feel better. What's the difference between going here or a psychiatrist?
Yeah.
So there is something to be said there too, but I couldn't exploit anybody out of their money. and completely fabricate everything. But I would go on a ghost hunting show and do that, and it probably is bullshit. But that doesn't mean that I don't believe. I just don't know if we can measure those things with man-made tools. I believe in the spirituality. I'm more likely to believe in like a Tangina, somebody that can go in there and feel a presence and talk to them in a way. But I don't believe in like the Ghostbuster needles and shit like that. We're measuring this. That's what I think is probably bullshit. Probably. I'm never going to be the type of guy to say there's no chance. I'm not that close-minded, but I'm sure the stuff you see on TV is almost all folly. It's just to make money.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it boring. I remember the first couple of times those shows came out, I was like, oh, I'll check this out because I do believe in this stuff. And I was like, this is fucking boring. Like, I felt like they would try to indicate that things were happening that weren't, and certain things like noises and stuff. And there is a level of houses settling, just noises that occur that you can translate into whatever you want it to be. But when you're doing it on a show, if it's not entertaining, like if you're going to do a ghost hunter show and fake it, you better make me fucking entertained, or I'm not interested, right? I'm not overly concerned about whether it's real or not. I'm concerned about being entertained. And I think that most shows really lack that. And I noticed that, and I know Christian talks about this too, is that when I got into horror podcasting, I got a lot of paranormal investigators on my Facebook friend list.
Yeah, me too.
And I think that's cool. Like, I think if that's your hobby and what you like to do, like, knock your socks off. But I find it, I agree with you, Dave. I don't know if man-made tools can really track or connect to that spiritual side. I think some of us just have that intuitive ability to do that, more than machines or whatever dowsing rods we create or energy stuff. I just don't know. But I think that it's money making. I think you're right. They found a niche, and paranormal activity made it popular and cool. And, we're riding this train, this choo-choo train of paranormal investigators going to haunted houses, which is why I say it like that, because I get so fucking tired of some of the plot lines that they're fake, and they go to these haunted houses and turns out it's not. But these were 4 films today that we talked about that do it well.
Yes.
And some more well than others. I think for 1963 as a haunting, it was done well for what they had in 1963. But I think definitely the top 3 films that we discussed today, excellent. So thank you so much for coming on today, Dave. It was such a pleasure and an honor to work with you today.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Thank you. Pleasure was all mine. Like I say, I listen to the show every episode, and a lot of times I listen to good podcasts I like. I'm like, damn, I like to be part of the conversation. And you guys gave me the opportunity to do that today and watch 4 movies, which I enjoyed watching, especially Poltergeist, which is one of my all-time favorites. So I'm like, yeah, let's go and talk about this stuff. And I love the way you guys stick to the topic. The topic was about the paranormal stuff. I mean, I went off on my little Dave Z tangents a little bit on the stuff I love.
Hell, I do that too.
Yeah, but
right. But you guys stay focused, and it's not a dig about the show. You stick to the matter at hand. We're not going to sit here and review Terrified and pull in these movies. We're going to sit here and discuss little things about them that we like, but we're going to stick to the script and say, these are paranormal investigator movies. Let's talk about that aspect and how good was it represented in the film or not. And let's talk about that. And that's what I love about the show. It has a topic, and you guys stick to it. So it's
I definitely need Heather to rein me in sometimes, because sometimes I'll go off tangents.
That's okay. Tangents are fun. That's why we have them. Now, I'm going to promo one of your podcasts, because I don't want to make you feel awkward in doing it, because it is a Patreon podcast. But I'm going to tell you guys right now, if you are not a Patreon of Exploding Heads, you are missing out. For some reason, if you have been living under a rock for the past 5 years and somehow missed these 3 gentlemen on Exploding Heads, you are in a great deficit of some excellent horror movie talk, some excellent jokes, and Brandon's there sometimes too. So you can find some of their older episodes. I think they're on where are the older ones? Are they still on Horrorphilia, Dave? Up to episode 100?
You cannot find anything on Horrorphilia anymore.
Okay.
We have a whole new feed, which is it's in the same place as all the other ones were. It's just that we took it over through the Anchor app. So it's still on iTunes and Stitcher and everywhere else you can find them, but it's just Exploding Heads Horror Movie Podcast. And episode 1 through 102 now are there, because we're slowly releasing some of the Patreon shows slowly. So it's like, I think they'll always be like 30 months behind but they will drop.
That's awesome. Hey, and you know what? Better late than never. But if you don't want to wait, you should get yourself on Patreon.
Yep,
and Patreon is super easy to do. You download the app onto your phone. You go and you find Exploding Heads, and it's $3 American for something Canadian because the exchange sets minimum to listen to these guys. Plus, they have YouTube episodes. You won't need Pornhub anymore after downloading Exploding Heads, and you can just look at these gentlemen, and that will be enough for you. So I really strongly recommend listening to it. $3 a month. We're going to add all of our links. If you like what you heard Dave see today, you're going to like him even more on Exploding Heads. But he does have a free show. So for some reason, you just want to try him out for a little bit to see how he is. And do you mind plugging to where that is, Dave, so they can check out the Watsy Party?
Right. See, now the Watsy Party Horror Show also is now we resequenced it from the Horrorphia feed to the Anchor feed. So it's, again, look it up. There's only one WATZEE. If you look that up on iTunes or anywhere else that you can find the podcast, you're going to find us there. See, I'm the Z and he's the Watt. And yeah. It's different than Exploding Head. It's a 3-act show, and I think you'll really like it. And Watson, if you've never listened to Mr. Watson, then I don't know what you're doing because he's great too.
And you could have found him on Horror Corridor, which I hope his horrorcore stuff still exists.
I hope so too. I'm sure he has. I'm sure he has it. You know what I mean?
He does.
Yeah, he's not the kind of guy that would have it not. Yeah, I'm sure he's got it somewhere.
And he's also been on the Rotten Roundtable with Mark Nato. He does a weekly horror show now. The weekly horror show that he does, I know you mentioned it earlier. I can't remember it off the top of my head, though.
Horror Movie Weekly.
Horror Movie Weekly. So if you've heard him on there, and if you haven't, please go check him out. And you can listen to him and Dave C if you want to listen to two very well-spoken gentlemen with a very well-produced show. Some great music. I love the party theme, partly because I love parties. I love eating and drinking. Those are my jams. So
have fun, enjoy yourself.
Right, Dave? One day Dave and I are gonna have lots of fun enjoying some greenage together in either
please.
Well, maybe invite Scott. We'll see.
Scott. Yeah, I better be there, damn it.
Well, I'll take you guys to see Christian. We'll surprise him. You'll come up. We won't tell Christian, and then we'll just show up at his house.
And I was saying, I also got to meet Junior.
Well, that's, yeah. Man,
that would require alcohol. If I don't drink anymore, so good for you because
it won't take much.
Yeah, because Junior will make appearances with enough alcohol. Hey, check this out. Like my wife even knows that too. She's like, listen, I went to the last. I've only drinking maybe 3 times in the last year, and one time I went to a party for my old boss who was leaving, who I loved, and she was leaving to go to a promotion to another job in the company, and my wife didn't know anybody at the party. So she said, I'm going to drop you off at the party and then I'm going to pick you up later on. You let me know, call me, say, come pick me up, because my boss wanted me to drink because she's like, I've never seen you drink and you're so much fun and you got to drink. And I said, all right, Julie, for you, I'll drink. So I went to the party and I got drunk. Now before on the way there, my wife says, now listen, when I come pick you up, when I come and get you, I don't want to pull up there and see your dick out. I said, come on. I go, those days are over. No, I'm not going to do that. But my wife knows me. That's all I'm saying.
She sounds like she's really funny, Dave. Like, I think
she's
I love her real talk, right? She's like, look, just keep the dick away. Just
right. Right. Stop sharing. Awesome. Those days are over. It's not the trophy it once was. You're not 20 anymore. Can't be showing it off like you used to show it off. Come on, buddy.
She's cool. Right. She's cool. The wrench, we like her. She's an awesome
wrench.
Yeah.
She wrenched me today, by the way, but yeah, I still love her.
Love it.
Spoken like a true married man. So yes, thank you again, Dave. We'll be back in 2 weeks. I don't even know what we're doing. I don't know. We're doing a really cool topic though next time. Guaranteed, right, Scott?
Yes. Really. We already have it.
We just want to keep it a surprise. We want to keep everyone guessing.
Yeah, it's totally planned. Really, it is.
It is. We have a list. I just can't remember what we agreed to do offhand.
Yeah, I don't think we have agreed yet.
We're actually going to be doing a prom time, Dave. We're going to be doing like prom movies, not prom night, but other movies that are based around dances in May.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And we might even dress up and record it.
And do a video version.
Right? Yeah.
Prom
we're trying
king
to do
and
some
queen?
different stuff. Yeah, but we can't do prom night. No, the first prom night. We could do some of the other ones like Mary Lou or whatnot.
Yep, so that's gonna be one of our fun ones because we may do a video release on that one and us dressed up in like nice outfits and stuff.
So
That'd
Scott
be awesome.
can pick up some bitches.
Yeah.
Scott, will you wear a top hat?
If I can find a top hat, I will so wear it.
I think you'd look good in a top hat. I don't know why. I could just picture it. Like a Monopoly man.
Oh my God, I was thinking the same thing, Dave.
Yeah.
Ooh, and I could actually get a monocle too.
Yeah, monocle. And you're like, do not pass go. But thank you again, Dave Z. And until next time, Scotty, what do you have to say?
Well, before I lead us out, I just want to say,
fuck off, Scotty.
Hey, Bo would be happy to hear this. But please go follow us on the Legion Podcast Network. Go to Legion Podcasts and like, share, and subscribe, and leave a review for your favorite podcasts. You can find us there. We are under the Kill the Cast banner, the Friday Nightmares Podcast. You know where we are, but, always support Legion. We are proud members of the Legion Podcast Network. And then until next time, unpleasant dreams. Bye. Oh my God, what is that noise? Oh my God.
Oh, fucking sake, Scotty.
Awesome.
This'll keep it quiet. Oh, hi there. I didn't see you. You caught me cutting a new show. I'm Bo Ransdell, and I'm one of the many creators you can find on Legion Podcasts. I said quiet! My fellow podcasters and I work hard to bring you the best in horror podcasting, but that comes at a cost. Wouldst thou like to live deliciously? Not that, but also yes. No, what I'm getting at is that there are server costs, costs for good microphones and software for editing, all the things that make our shows, fun to listen to. And you can help. If you're enjoying the shows on legionpodcasts.com or in the Legion Network available on iTunes and Stitcher, just about anywhere you can download a podcast, really, you can help us out and get a little something for your trouble at patreon.com/Legion Podcasts. For just $2 a month, you get a pair of movie commentaries exclusive to Patreon, and for $5, you can also join us for a monthly screening of a movie. All of that available on patreon.com/Legion Podcasts. We appreciate it, and thank you for listening. Now, back to the cutting room.